Among all things, only man possesses a soul that lurks in the body, where it grows and takes shape. These forms are innumerable, and each soul has a different form, and the possessors of the greatest among them follow the path of practice and become masters of spiritual forms. Though their bodies are mortal, yet their spirit is immortal. And if the spirit is not appeased, its form becomes furious. And just as the dove occupies the magpie's nest, so the rebellious spirit occupies the corpse. 15 years ago, a similar spirit rose up in the city of Lofeng. A black fog enveloped the city, and people were afraid to sleep. Then the city was filled with corpses, and of the 200,000 inhabitants, none of them unfortunately survived. After that day, more and more spirits raised corpses all over the land. Almost every corpse rose from the dead, bringing fear to those who were still alive at that moment. Therefore, the city's spiritual administration gathered the best craftsmen from all over the face of the earth, distributing them into 6 departments. Each one of them is doing his job. Some are engaged in destroying evil spirits, some in exterminating demons, some in wresting souls, and some in defense of the people. The cadaver department is responsible for bringing coffins home and laying the deceased to rest. Leaving the land of the living and the city walls, it is as if you are at that moment with one foot in the world of the living and the other foot in the world of the dead. The light of the lamp of the dead extinguishes the spirits. Meanwhile, in that coffin carried by our protagonist lurks the spirit of the heavenly phase. On the way, Rank 9 Corpse Department servant Mu Pyeoksin worriedly asked the elder if everything would be all right, for he had heard that the woman inside had been kidnapped into slavery and her husband had been killed in an attempt to rescue her. He also said it was better to propitiate and get there before midnight, or else the spirit might rebel. Didn't he understand the meaning of bringing the body back home at all? To which Jiang Xuan, a 9th Rank Corpse Department attendant, said that he completely agreed with him. Mu Pyeoksin further added that if it wasn't for the porter who carried the coffin, they would have been long gone by now. The porter Ding Xiao told them that he had a load on him and he couldn't keep up with them because of it, as it was very heavy to carry. After that, the elders continued the conversation. One of them said that he was carrying a 50 kilograms load all the way and that he was persistent. The other replied that in his opinion he was useless and that he was a shameless lurker in the spiritual directorate. Jiang Xuan then told Mu Pyeoksin that he completely agreed with him because he had been hopelessly carrying coffins for 8 years and that he was most likely selling the spiritual dust produced by the spiritual headquarters for a good price. Hearing this, the porter Ding Xiao said about how even the spiritual dust he was really selling wouldn't help him. After all, he is unable to form a spiritual form to advance further. He went on to say that the spirit form is born from the heart and then merged with the person, and that is how spiritual masters eventually emerge. Meanwhile, he had already had 2448 attempts. No matter how many times he tried it, the more times he found himself here, the more he comprehended it. People grow by burning meditation, and he could use both approaches. He thought that perhaps all his labors would be in vain, but he was not going to give up. The elders had also told him that this was their last meeting. After all, they noticed that after 8 years, he had finally awakened. He saw the golden talisman and wondered why someone was always bothering him since he was so close. He then addressed his spirit form by shouting something that he would not surrender, and the spirit form was ordered not to surrender. Then one of the elders asked the porter why he was making noise. In response, the porter apologized to him. But suddenly, strange sounds started coming from the coffin, and the elders ordered everyone to stand still. The bearer did not realize what was happening at this point, for there was still plenty of time before midnight. And suddenly, at some point, there was a 4th stage possessed bloody spider sitting above the coffin. One of the elders asked the other for permission to deal with this low-ranking spirit, to which the other elder gave him permission to act, after which he set about destroying the spider. He was sure he would succeed. At one point, the porter could not cope with the coffin and dropped it on the ground. He was immediately attacked by the elders, who said that he could not even hold the coffin. Next, the one who killed the spider asked the porter why he was afraid, and it's up to the older man with the whole thing to deal with it. After he had dealt with the spider, he told the other elder that he thought the spider was too weak and that he didn't even get to have fun, which he really wanted to do. To which the latter looked away and said no, and he looked in the direction where there were a great many other spiders that the two of them would have to fight. They didn't understand where all these spiders were coming from, but at the same time, they thought that they would deal with this spirit form quickly despite the fact that there were so many of them. And they began to say that form is born from the heart, molded by the spirit and joined. And 2 spirits appeared near the elders, namely the spirit of the 6th stage, Midnight Wolf, and the spirit of the royal stage, Infernal Fox. and they began controlling their spirits to try to destroy all these spiders, because with the help of spirits, it turns out much faster and more effective. At one point, they noticed that the target of all these spiders was a coffin, and one of them said that the spiders were too scattered and that they needed to get them all together. In the meantime, the porter, watching the whole situation, suddenly thought that this was the power of the spiritual form and wondered when he would master his own. One of the elders approached the porter and said that he had thought right, for spirit masters, spirit form was the foundation. Another elder laughed and said that a porter unable to form a spirit would always be at the bottom. Zhang Xuan asked Mu Pao Xin to help him at some point because he was attacked by a girl. Mu Pao Xin, using the speed talisman, decided to help him. At some point, he realized it was too dangerous because this girl was too dangerous. Zhang Xuan told the girl that although she was a brave spirit, but how dare she set up a disturbance in this place. After the battle, he wondered where the spirit had come from, if something had gotten on the corpse. He thought that only a four-sided seal could contain such a thing, but he couldn't do it alone without Piaoxin, and he realized that it might be Ding Xiao and shouted at him. Then he shouted to the girl that he had seen her child, and that he had seen him, and that the child looked very much like her. The secrets of the corpse department said that even though they were possessed, the remnants of the spirit form's consciousness were still present. And that since she died in childbirth, the older one thought he might be on to something. Something did happen. The dead girl who got out of the coffin began to wonder where her child was and decided to find him by any means necessary. But the elders at that moment began to recite the words that when the master returns, the thief runs away, and that the ashes return to the earth and the soul is lifted up, after which they applied the seal. At one point, one of them said excitedly that they had finally sealed it because this spirit was not simple. He also said that he never thought he could build a four-sided seal and that he was alive because of it, to which the other replied to him that he practiced seals on his own every day in his spare time and didn't think it could help anyone one day. At some point, the girl broke free of the seal and took possession of a possessed 10th step six-eyed blood spider, then began attacking everyone present, and first of all, of course, the elder who had sealed her. After dealing with all the monsters and the girl, they began to discuss the situation. The younger one told the older one that it was midnight and that was why the corpse was hungry, to which the older one replied that it was just because of the blood on the corpse. Meanwhile, the porter told them that they were both wrong in their conclusions about this whole situation. As they fought, the girl looked at it all and thought about the fact that the lust for killing had been flying to their aid more and more lately. Also at that moment in some house, some grandfather looked and thought and said he's here after all. He also added that a glare of the sun on the water was not a creature in the pond, and that clouds driven by the wind suddenly changed the weather. In general, he was saying things he didn't understand and why. Having flown up to some place, the girl stopped near a ball with a pile of papers, from which came phrases rather, and that the master was it. The girl didn't quite understand who was talking to her at first, but then she remembered her spiritual form. She said that she finally had spiritual power. In response, the spirit thanked her for her work and said that although it was not fully formed and the spiritual powers were not complete, it could strengthen the master to 5 stars of the spiritual realm. The girl was surprised to hear about the 5 stars of the spirit realm and wondered if he was so strong right after awakening, what would happen then when he was fully formed? To which the spirit replied to the girl master that the danger forced him to awaken some of his spiritual power, but he could not cope with the expenditure of energy and was very tired. The girl told the spirit that since this was the case, she was letting him go on holiday. The spirit told her to take care of herself while he was resting. At the battle site after the battle itself, someone junior found Senior Zhang's amulet, but at the same moment, the young girl appeared there and told him not to be afraid and thanked him for freeing him from the evil spirit. She then asked him if he had really seen her child and if he was all right. She went on to say that very soon her spirit would dissipate, but before leaving, she would like to see her child. She asked very much to see her child. After that, he had a flower in his hands and said that it was a talisman of the remnant and that it would be able to hold a part of her soul in this world for the fulfillment of her last wish. He went on to say that although he had not seen her child, he promised her that if she went to the Li village, she would surely find her child there and her last wish would be fulfilled. He also added that there was no need to thank him for this, as it was the direct responsibility of their cadaver department to comfort the dead. Even later, the same glowing master girl arrived at the same place. She realized on arrival that there seemed to be a massacre at this place. She found a piece of the coffin of the city's spiritual administration at the site of the battle and realized that its ministers had participated in this battle. Next, she noticed the remains of a 6-headed bloody spider and wondered who could have done such a thing to these spiders. but then the story shifts to the minister. He came into the village and immediately people started discussing what a pathetic undertaker he was, how bad he looked, and so on. Some tried to read the inscription on the plaque. Others wondered if he had returned from his encounter with the demon. He came to visit Uncle Lee and said he was the undertaker carrying Miss Yun and asked him if the minister of the soothing of souls had arrived yet. To which Lee replied to him that no one but him had come yet after that night and wondered if Yun had become possessed. The undertaker said that he had become and therefore no longer needed the services of a funeral attendant. He also said he would meet them later and asked Lee if he knew where Miss Yun's child was. Lee replied that he knew and that it was the 3 daughters-in-law. Then he asked to bring the child, after which the undertaker brought her in. She said that Yun was Kuzi's younger sister and that she was infertile, so they adopted the child. The undertaker released Yun's spirit from the talisman, and she saw the child and was glad that it was alive. Then the undertaker spoke to her and told her that the living should not come into contact with the dead and that the child was too weak for that. He also told her that her last wish had been fulfilled and that she could leave the world. Yun then went to the 3rd sister and asked her to take care of her son. The 3rd sister reassured her and told her that she would take care of him with all her might. Next, Yun thanked the undertaker for fulfilling her last wish and left this world. The undertaker went on to say that it was windy outside and therefore it was better to take the child inside. He also turned to Lee and told him that his status did not allow him to go inside and that was why he was asking him to bring him water, to which Lee agreed. Then Uncle Lee went inside, got some water, and when he went outside again with the water, he did not find the undertaker, but he found something else. As he was already walking along the treasury road outside the village, the undertaker was carrying something and thinking about Zhang's 36 talismans, 500 pairs of silver money, 150 grams of spirit dust, and the priceless sword. He thought that poor senior Zhang Xuan had been alone all his life. And at some point, he pulled out something interesting from the very pouch he was looking at so intently. And what he got was a Keelan spiritual pearl. He didn't expect that an elder could have such a rare treasure, which could be used to multiply the scent of spiritual powers and the time to use skills with energy concentration. He didn't quite understand why Senior Zhang didn't use this pearl during the battle. After all, with it, he would have been able to defeat the demon alone. But suddenly, someone near him said that the undertaker always walks with his coffin. Meanwhile, the undertaker thought about why the minister of the repose of souls had arrived so quickly, for he should have arrived later. Also, grade 9 soul repose minister Liu Feinian asked him if he knew what the department would do to him for AWOL. Turning his obvious attention to Liu Feinian, he said that he was Ding Xiao's coffin bearer, after which he greeted senior disciple Liu. While he was greeting her, he thought about the fact that his spiritual form was not yet formed, and if he told her how things were, she would definitely not believe him and might discover the instability of the mist in the spiritual palace, and for that he should be destroyed. After a little thought, he apologized and said that while delivering the coffin, the spirit possessed the girl's corpse and killed 2 senior men from the department. He miraculously managed to escape, so he is going without the coffin. He also asked her to sort everything out. Liu Feinian asked incredulously, "Did the Class 9 masters not know when the spirits awakened, and did they not manage to escape, but an ordinary coffin bearer suddenly managed to do so?" To which Ding Xiao replied to her that after being possessed, Miss Yun turned into a 6-eyed spider that killed Zhang and Mu. But after that, a mysterious master appeared and killed the spider, and that was when he managed to escape. He further added that if she still doubted his words, in that case she could see for herself the truth of his words, for the remnant talisman he held out to her in his hand contained traces of the girl's soul. Liu Feinian thought that Ding Xiao's words were similar to the truth, because how else would it be possible for an ordinary coffin carrier to kill 2 masters? After briefly thinking about it, she noticed Ding Xiao's sword and told him that it was after all a priceless sword, which was a rare and very familiar item to her. She took the sword from him and decided to examine him to see if he had taken anything else valuable and familiar with him. While she was searching him, he thought about the fact that she might be looking for the Qilin pearl, and if she suddenly found out that he had the pearl, she would most likely think that he was the one who killed Zhang and Mu. And he told her after some thought that before the corpse became possessed, Senior Zhang had given him a sword for self-defense, and that he had nothing else. He also offered to give her the sword as a gift since she liked it so much and asked her not to kill him. Liu Feinian said that Zhang Xuan would never give up his precious sword, so she thought he had stolen it from him. She further said that if he obediently gave back everything he had taken from him, she would let him leave. Realizing that Liu Feinian was a 7-star spiritual practitioner and that he could not be an equal opponent to her, he thought of running away from her as quickly as possible. While he was pondering, Liu Feinian attacking had already directly ordered him to give her the Colleen Pearl as soon as possible, which she assumed he had definitely taken for himself. At the moment of the attack, Ding Xiao used a spearhead talisman, with which he was able to block Liu Feinian's spiritual form. Liu Feinian was at this moment very much surprised by the events taking place, because there was no way an ordinary spearhead talisman could block her spiritual form. Next, he applied the speed talisman, with which he escaped very quickly. But he didn't run for long, as not far from his start were the 9th grade soul resting servant Sun Xiuchu, along with the 8th grade soul resting servant Miao Shun, who he eventually ran to as there was nowhere else to run to. Next, Liu Feinian approached them in a particularly leisurely manner and asked Senior Miao for permission to deal with him personally. But Senior Miao saw Ding Xiao running away from her and decided to take care of him himself, not trusting her to do it again. He also demanded the Qilin Pearl from him using his 9th stage spirit, namely Brown Bear. Ding Xiao replied to Senior Miao as well, saying that he really didn't know where the Qilin Pearl was, being completely immersed in spiritual power. He was also confused about breaking the ban by the elders and attacking his own. Sun Xuechu noticed that Ding Xiao had his own spiritual power and was surprised to hear that from the others, as they thought he shouldn't have it. Miao Shun said that in his opinion, Ding Xiao had already used the pearl, so he had it. Sometime later, Ding Xiao managed to disappear without a trace, and Sun Xiuchu asked Miao Shun for permission to catch up with him. In response, Miao Shun told him that he should not do so, as he would most likely not be able to do so anymore. Sun Xiuchu then asked if Ding Xiao was able to reveal his spirit. Liu Feinian replied that if that was the case, then the treasure was in dangerous hands. Miao Shun meanwhile wondered how Ding Xiao, such a lucky scoundrel, had managed to unleash his spirit. After which, he said that they needed to go back to the department where he could beat Ding Xiao out of Ding Xiao with interest. Meanwhile, Ding Xiao was already at the Nanling City spiritual office, upon reaching which he thought that he had finally managed to get to this place. After all, it was quite far away. Sitting down a little, resting, he thought about the fact that he needed to get to the secretary as soon as possible, in time to relay the information about the possessed man to avoid further suspicion. He then went to the secretariat and told them about the situation. The secretary was very surprised to learn that the only survivor was the Grobenoser. Looking at the secretary's reaction, Ding Xiao thought about the fact that the secretary quite looked like he already knew what had happened, and what he had come to tell him didn't seem like news to him. But the secretary suddenly started talking about how he guessed from the strange behavior of the Lamp of Dead Souls that they had encountered a possessed man, but also added that he had not guessed that it was the gravedigger who would survive, and offered to write down the story, and told Ding Xiao the full version of exactly how everything happened in great detail, just as the secretary had requested. The secretary wrote it all down, and at one point said that it was to be expected that he was unconscious without his spiritual form, and that he was very lucky to have survived after all that had happened there. Ding Xiao confirmed his words and told the secretary that he was indeed right about this. Then after the secretary wrote everything down, he instructed Ding Xiao to leave. But Ding Xiao was not going to leave and told the secretary that there was something else. And he asked the secretary what should be done with the belongings of the two elders after their death, which were in his possession. To which the secretary replied to him that if they had anything of value in the cadaver department, he could keep it. After leaving the secretariat, Ding Xiao thought that if the spiritual department allowed him to keep the things of the elders, then he had the right to keep the pearl for himself. But it was unlikely that Miao Shun would allow it, so he needed to awaken his spiritual power. The head of the Nanling Corps Department, Lin Hong, was watching Ding Xiao and Bai Shi, who was not far away from him, and was curious as to what they were doing in the city near the secretariat. The head walked up to Bai Shi and asked her if she was in a hurry to go somewhere. Bai Shi, seeing the head in front of her, greeted him and told him that she had accidentally bumped into a possessed person on the way and decided to check what had happened, and that was the reason why she was late. Ling Hong wanted to know more about it. Whereupon Bai Shi began to narrate how the strange aura of the possessed woman soared up to the heavens, where Bai Shi hurried to. But upon arrival, there were only remnants of the spider, and the bodies of the servants and the coffin bearer were not there at all. Ling Hong didn't believe it and said that it couldn't be. Afterwards, Bai Shi said that she wanted to know if someone from the squad that transported the corpse to Li Village had come to the headquarters. Ling Hong remembered Ding Xiao, whom he had seen just recently, and asked Bai Shi to go with him. Let Ias go to the secretariat. He read Ding Xiao's recorded story and thought about the fact that he was born with his shirt on. After all, not everyone would be able to survive after all the events he had told about. Ling Hong went on to say that it was not surprising that a dead man who was possessed by anger was difficult to rest and that possession could cause such a strong aura to appear. But he didn't quite believe that the two attendants had failed. Bai Shi also read the entry and asked Head Ling Hong if Ding Xiao was still a casket maker. To which Head Lin Hong replied to her that yes, because at that time they were both young talents, but now was not the best time to promote. He further added that in such a dark time, when the dead were rising everywhere and when everyone only cared about themselves, a person without a single drop of spiritual power like Ding Xiao would be safest to stay within the walls of the spiritual headquarters. Except that he was surprised that Ding Xiao was able to return safely even when the two servants had fallen from the clutches of the six-headed blood spider, because that would require an incredible amount of luck. Bai Shi said that this whole situation wasn't as simple as it seemed, because she had seen another aura in addition to the possessed man's aura. She wanted to know who the master who had saved them was. To which Ling Hong told her not to worry about it, because since it had come to his attention, he would have him investigate the matter and find out everything even more detailed than what Ding Xiao had described. Despite Ling Hong reassuring Bai Shi, she wanted to know where Ding Xiao was at the moment. Meanwhile, Ding Xiao was already home and was hugging his sister who missed him and told him so when he arrived. He told her that he missed her too and then asked her if she had behaved well in his absence. His younger sister Ding Ling said she did everything her brother told her to do. At one point, she noticed that Ding Xiao's clothes were torn and asked him what had happened to him. And he told her that he was fine and not to worry about him, as he was already home and alive. But Ding Ling wasn't calm and thought he was hiding something, then asked if he wanted to stop doing the work he was doing because there were more and more possessed people. Ding Xiao replied that not everyone is able to serve in the department, but he was just there. He also said that he had managed to discover his spiritual form and that his life would gradually become better. Ding Ling was very happy for Ding Xiao and asked him if he would now be able to continue cultivating using his spiritual form. But Ding Xiao didn't answer her question and asked her his own, how her illness was going while he was away. To which she replied that it was normal and that she didn't want him to look at her. But regardless, he asked her to turn around, looked at her other sleeping face and said it seemed to get bigger. At first he thought it was partial baldness. But later it turned out to be the spirit of baldness, which brings many misfortunes. Even though old people say that spirits shave their heads and that it's a bad sign, but since Liner has been sick since birth, there is a cure. But as she matured, the face on the back of her head also grew, and the eyes, nose, mouth, and all the other parts of the face inherent to the face appeared on it. After the Lofeng massacre, the spiritual authority issued a law to eliminate unstable form bearers. After issuing the law, he was afraid that if the instability of Liner's form was found out, she would be killed. Therefore, he was afraid to ask anyone for help. But if he let that person continue to grow, Liner would definitely be discovered and killed. She told him not to worry about her because it had been many years and she was still fine. Ding Xiao told her that he would find the medicine, no matter how expensive or how it was obtained, and save her. Liner agreed with him wholeheartedly and said she would look forward to it. Meanwhile, Bai Shi was on her way to Ding Xiao's house and was being guided by the people she asked for the correct and exact way to get there. The woman who had once pointed out the right path to Ding Xiao after Bai Shi left thought why such a cute girl would need a coffin carrier and felt sorry for her. Bai Shi understood what that woman was thinking and also thought about whether Ding Xiao was hurling insults just for working as a coffin carrier or if there was another reason for it. And she also wondered how he had lived all these years, for he had once been a consummate talent. And she remembered that 8 years ago they had entered the spiritual directorate together as an exception. The master had said that their destinies, like the destinies of talents, were intertwined from birth. At the time, she was like everyone else, envious of his talent, and there were times that she even followed him. She even told him that one day she would surpass him. And he believed her then and added to her confidence by telling her that she would definitely surpass him. When he was taken away to the capital office, she also entered the Bayi Spiritual Academy, and from that moment on, their fates were torn apart and they formed different paths. As she approached the gate of his house, she thought, who would have thought that today they would meet again? But this time by fate, she had come to investigate a case that had happened to him. Reaching out her hand to knock on the gate, she suddenly heard voices. It was Ding Xiao, who told his sister that it was a beautiful sunset today and that it was a good occasion to have dinner outside, to which his sister replied favorably. Hearing this, she thought that after so many years apart, she might mess things up if she barged in right now and decided she would change her mind about knocking and barging in and first go back to the chapter and wait for the final investigation. But Ding Xiao sensed something and looked towards the gate. His sister asked him what he saw or heard because she didn't see, hear, or feel anything, unlike him. To which Ding Xiao replied to her that it was nothing like that, whereupon he suggested that she should go faster, for the food was getting cold. After immersing himself in meditation, he was visited by a spirit, where the spirit told him that spiritual dust was too little and he was too hungry, to which Ding Xiao replied to him that he knew that, and that he would find a way to find him more of it. After coming out of meditation, he thought that dust wouldn't be enough and that he needed to reach the cultivation foundation of a 3-star adept and planned to go to the shop the next day. The next day, when he came to the trading hall of the town's spiritual administration, he approached the monkey and asked him if he was behind the counter today. The monkey called him a nail and asked him whether he had come for spiritual dust or something else, to which Ding Xiao replied to the servant of the trading hall Hao Yi favorably, and also told him that this time the corpse department servants he was with had died, so the secretary dispersed to take their belongings for himself. In response, Hou Yi asked Ding Xiao if he was all right. Ding Xiao replied that he was fine and offered to evaluate the things in the box, which he held out to him in his hand after his words. Hao Yi was very surprised when he saw the 4-sided seal, igniters, punishers, troslovniks, and other expensive talismans in the box. He said that for all this, taking 20% into account, it ended up being 14500. Ding Xiao then asked to set aside 120 for Ling Er's medicine, 200 grams of the saw he wanted to keep, and the rest he asked to exchange for 2 flight talismans and 6 speed talismans. Hao Yi agreed and asked him to wait until he brought everything. A while later, Hao Yi came out and provided the goods and said that everything he had asked for was there. Taking all the things he asked for and stepping back a bit, he thought about the fact that there was still half a month left before the entrance exams, and if he cultivated hard, he would become a 9th-grade servant. Not far away, Fang Ji, an older student, suddenly said that this year's exams were much harder than last year's. Another student asked him what he meant, to which Fang Ji said that the other 5 departments think that the corpse department has little work and a lot of money, and therefore decided to cut their staff, and that even Head Lin alone can't influence this, so he only has to accept the new rules. He also said that he had heard that those who participate in the corporeal department exam would have to fight with candidates in the spiritual department. Another disciple asked if they were just looking for an excuse to hurt their department. One of the students went and asked the boss what they should do. Bai Shi asked him what he was so scared of. Meanwhile, the boss said that they should swim against the current because even if there were no innovations, they still couldn't relax. Ding Xiao heard all these conversations, and after hearing this, he thought that there were tigers and leopards outside, jackals and wolves inside, and that it seems that this time it really wouldn't be easy if the 3 he looked at were involved. The next day, Ding Xiao decided to practice using the volley talisman. After successfully practicing, he thought to himself that he couldn't even imagine previously that he would have such strength. Even a complicated spell he had mastered easily. Suddenly, his spirit spoke to him and congratulated him for breaking through to the level of a 6-star spiritual practitioner, and it was worth noting that his current power had already surpassed that of other adepts of the same stage. In other words, he could defeat even a 7-star adept. After saying that, he suggested climbing to the top. After climbing to the top, he thought that he finally understood how the possessors of such spiritual power felt. After some time, one day came the very day when the exam is being conducted. The presenter announced the beginning of the examination of their cadaver department and said that changes had been made. He said that firstly, the difficulty of the secret realm level trials had now been added. Secondly, the masters of the corpse and spirit divisions would participate. And thirdly, there would be 2 teams of 5 people each. Bai Shu, the head of Nanling City, asked Bai Shi, the daughter of the head of Nanling City, where she was looking. To which Bai Shi replied that the spiritual department in this examination is with bad intentions. The head of the spiritual department, Zhang Tianxing, said that the team that was the first to eliminate and arrest the leader of the evil spirits at the secret realm level in its entirety goes further. He went on to say that the other team was eliminated and said that it was a sad sight and that the students of the cadaver department didn't stand a chance. One of the disciples said that he was wrong to believe Fang Jie because they would really be competing with the disciples of the spiritual department. The other one told him that it was a team test and they would be able to do well if they worked in a coordinated manner. The secretary then provided the draws for the spirit and cadaver divisions and that each had an equal number of teams participating. He then asked which of them wanted to go first. Then one of them pulled out a piece of paper and it ended up that the 3 of them were on the same team as planned. The other said that was great and that they would do it together. And Liu Fanlin was the only one who found it boring. Meanwhile, Bai Shou thought that a Class 8 soul calming servant and 2 Class 9 soul calming servants would make a good team. When they saw Ding Xiao, they began to discuss what he had forgotten, why he had come here, and many other questions and thoughts they had. After hearing all this, he announced to all of them that he wanted to take part in the exam, which surprised them very much. The secretary hearing this told him that this year they were upholding the honor of their department, and a coffin bearer had no business messing about without spiritual power, and so he tried to chase him away. To which Ding Xiao said that there is no rule that prohibits coffin bearers from participating in the exam, and so he asked to be allowed to draw lots. The secretary, after listening to him, suggested that he undergo a spiritual power test in such a case, and also advised him not to disgrace himself in case of its absence. Hao Yi stood up for him at that moment and told the secretary that it was unfair, since none of the contestants had passed the spiritual power test. Then why should Ding Xiao pass it? The secretary replied that it was because the others had it and he didn't, and if Ding Xiao didn't want to be tested, he could leave. But Ding Xiao still decided to take the test and prove that he had strength. As he approached the testing area, he thought that the 8 trigrams only showed the level of spiritual power, not the power itself, so he decided to just contain his power because that way they wouldn't get suspicious. Seeing the 3 trigrams, Hao Yi said that Ding Xiao has a level 3 spiritual power. Bai Shou, seeing the result of the test, wondered where Ding Xiao's spiritual power came from. The disciples began to discuss his strength. One said that it seemed like his escape last time wasn't just luck. Another thought that maybe it was because of the killing pill. After checking, Ding Xiao asked the secretary if he could draw lots now, to which the secretary replied in the affirmative, and he drew lots in the end. Bai Shu thought that even if Ding Xiao had spiritual power, but the trial was too dangerous, and that was why it was better to be a little more careful. The lot included a second team, which already had 3 people on it. Liu Feinian of those 3 welcomed Ding Xiao to the team and said that he had nothing to worry about, and that they would take good care of him. Grade 8. Spirit Hunting Servant, Xiao Zhan turned to this team and told them that it was good that he wasn't in their shoes, for it would have been a disappointment, and further complimented that fighting a group of weaklings was a pathetic sight. Walking up to Ding Xiao, he told him, since he dared to take part in the appraisal, then no wonder why the corpse department was not doing its job, and it was good that the spiritual department was getting rid of such rubbish in his opinion. Ding Xiao thought that he couldn't even imagine that his opponent would be Xiao Zhan, who is the most arrogant minister of the spiritual department, and he is much stronger than Miao Shun, and in a direct clash in his opinion, he would lose. One of the corpse team told Xiao Zhan in response that he didn't know how many of his fellows had given their lives fighting the possessed, and that he regretted that he didn't have an ounce of respect for them. Liu Feinian complimented him that the only rubbish in her opinion was in Xiao Zhan's mouth, and that they were sitting around enjoying the fruits of the dedication of the witnesses of the corpse department. Bai Shou then turned to Zhang Tianxing and asked him why his disciples were insulting their colleagues, thus violating the rules of interdepartmental etiquette. He also asked him if he would turn a blind eye to it, to which Zhang Tianxing replied that their disciples in his opinion were completely right and he saw nothing wrong in it. And then the host turned to them and told them to settle down and not to keep the young ones from having adventures. Zhang Tianxing further said that if Head Lin disagreed, after the results, if at least one of their teams passed, he and all of his disciples would personally apologize to them. To which Lin said that he hoped that Head Zhang would not retract his words. The secretary thought that he had risked his authority by helping Ding Xiao get into the second team, and under the protection of those 3 should pass. He also said that the teams were short of 1 participant and asked if there were any other ministers to participate. In the meantime, the cadaver department members thought that the disciples of the spiritual department were really better and stronger than them, and that the cadaver department had better not disgrace themselves as they had no chance in the competition against the disciples of the spiritual department. Then the secretary came to them and said that if they didn't find 5 participants, their team would be disqualified. And then one of them said in the direction of those who did not dare to try that they were cowards. Zhang Tianxing heard this and told them that the corpse department was really made up of cowards who couldn't even recruit the right number of people for the exam at the right time, and advised them to give up and not take any risks. And at that moment, Hao Yi asked if he could participate as well as the coffin bearer. Ding Xiao asked him why he needed to do all this, as he was fine in the shop. Hu Yi replied that he had managed to survive for so many years without a spiritual form, so he wanted to follow in his footsteps, and added that although he was weak, he would try his best. To which one of the 3 where Ding Xiao had gone to said, "Here comes another ballast most likely to join them." But Liu Feinian said that he didn't look bad if he was used as a human shield. Bai Shou meanwhile announced that it was time for the exam to begin and that the realm was opening. He then added that the exam would last for 3 days and that the time flow in the secret realm was 10 times slower than in the real world. So he asked everyone to be very careful and that it was forbidden to kill other ministers during the test. The 5 corpse department ministers went first, along with Hao Yi, and one of them said that they should go ahead of the spirit department and eliminate the main spirit earlier. When they arrived at the site, they found that all the graves had been dug up and that the place was pretty grim considering. Suddenly, Ding Xiao noticed and said that not all the graves had been dug and some of them were still intact. He noticed one coffin that looked nothing like the others and was very different from the others. No sooner had the servants got closer to that coffin than it opened, and the girl asked them if they would help her find her grandfather or if they had an entirely different purpose. Obsessed with the master phase, Devil Doll said she was lost and that she was really hoping for their help. One of the team of corpse department servants seeing a master-level evil spirit said that it was a very bad sign. Ding Xiao complimented him that they, as disciples, were supposed to get the weakest spirit of the adept rank, but in front of them was a possessed one a step higher, namely a spirit of the master phase, and wondered if it was a coincidence. Meanwhile, the spirit was already angry, continuing to ask about whether they would help her find her grandfather or not, and also added the girl that she couldn't wait any longer. The ministers remarked that she had a bad temper and that they first needed to calm her down and find her weak spot. Ding Xiao asked her what her grandfather looked like and told her to find him. The girl replied that he is tall with long arms, black lips, green teeth, and most importantly that he makes a divine, delicious, refreshing soup, but he has been taken away by a monster and sealed in a formation, and she can't go in there. Lu Feinian said that the girl was too emotionally unstable and there was no telling what she would do or say next. She wanted to know how strong this girl was, to which Ding Xiao agreed. Ding Xiao also asked the girl where the formation was. The girl replied that she immediately realized that he was good and asked him to go with her to where the formation was, and they all followed her. On the way, she was humming some song that they were following her favorite grandfather, who was tearing his hands and heads off, but he was her favorite grandfather. Hao Yi asked Ding Xiao what the song about dismemberment was about, since it didn't make him feel good. To which Ding Xiao replied to him that if his guess is correct, it sounds like she is leading them to their death. Liu Feinian asked the boss what to do next, to which he told her that for now it was okay to go behind Ding Xiao, Hao Yi, and the girl, but next he planned to eliminate them all. When they arrived at the place, they realized that they had come to a soul captivity formation. Next, they sealed the girl into this same soul captivity formation, from where the girl shouted to them that they were not warriors, for they had hurt the child. After all that happened, Ding Xiao said that it was quite dangerous and that he and Hao Yi might have been sealed by the formation, then thought that it was fortunate that he had immediately noticed the hostility of the other ministers towards them. The boss said that this spirit was too strong and that the formation wouldn't be able to withstand it, and so we should run away from that place sooner rather than later. The girl, meanwhile, saw them running away and thought that they would end up in her soup sooner or later anyway. But no sooner had they run far away, Lu Feinian along with another attendant immediately found themselves sealed after the girl was freed. The girl started to leave, but Ding Xiao told the boss to save the captives while he detained the girl. But in trying to save them, the boss saw that there was no one inside those red shapes. But while he was doing this, a boy who looked like Ho Yi put a sword into him and said that he had finally found the meat, and now there would be a soup with such a lovely flavor, and what was left was to chop and throw that meat into the soup. He shouted to Hu Yi to wake up. Boss meanwhile told Ding Xiao not to let himself be fooled, for there was only a body left of Hao Yi. After forcibly calming Hao Yi down before apologizing, Ding Xiao thought about the fact that it turns out the girl can control other people. After that, the girl turned to Ding Xiao and said that his guys were very fragile and crumble very easily, but in her opinion, they could be remolded. The boss further said that it was puppetry and that only some possessed people had special powers. He also said that with her power, she strips people of their will, turning them into mindless puppets. He also added that in half an hour, the subordinates' consciousness would dissipate forever, and so it was necessary to bring them back as soon as possible. He further said that he would restrain Ho Yi and asked Ding Xiao to deal with the evil spirit in the meantime, and warned him to be careful, for she was at the master stage. After finding the girl, Ding Xiao saw her and thought that it looked like the doll in her hands was a magical tool, so he needed to take it away from her first. After trying to do so, he failed, and the girl said that the adults were hurting her again and that it was shameless. Next, Ding Xiao tried to do this with the activated speed talisman. Seeing this, the girl said that she liked catching up. But with the speed talisman, he became more successful and still managed to take the doll away from the girl, after which he uttered that rotten wood and dead roots recede from the living. After deactivating the puppet, Ding Xiao was glad that he was able to remove the influence of the puppet on the other ministers, and the very first thing he noticed was that Hao Yi started asking where he got his fingernails from. But the next thing he noticed was that something started to move from the doll into his hand, cutting it open. The girl told him that this is what happens to those who offend her and asked him to feel the blade pierce her heart. At this moment, Ding Xiao activated his spirit. The girl saw this and said in surprise that his tail had grown and that it would make her have more fun. To which Ding Xiao replied to her that he was about to show her some real fun that she definitely wasn't expecting. He then began to strike her, fighting with her. After being hit and attacked by Ding Xiao, she said that she would tell her grandfather that he was hurting her. And also, after her words, she wondered why Ding Xiao's tail was giving her such fear. This is the first time she has seen such a spirit form. Ding Xiao asked her back what her grandfather would do to him and also added that he hadn't had enough fun with her yet. Boss, seeing the way Ding Xiao was massacring the girl, thought that at first he thought that his spiritual form was the result of absorbing the Qilin pill. But it turns out that he had one of his own, but he didn't understand why it was so fierce. While in the arms of Ding Xiao's spirit, the girl said that she was no longer having fun at all and asked him to let her go, otherwise she would tell her grandfather to kill him and all his friends. To which he replied to her that he hated threats the most. The boss told him to calm down, but he didn't listen to him and kept talking to the girl he was holding with the help of the spirit. Further surprised by what he saw, Hao Yi said that he was surprised that Ding Xiao had such a powerful form. Meanwhile, boss realized that Ding Xiao could absorb the powers of the possessed, but he didn't understand how it was even possible. Ding Xiao asked the girl where those ministers who had disappeared were, to which the girl told him that they were at her grandfather's house. Ding Xiao further said that he would personally give him her regards, whereupon he destroyed her. After the destruction, he said that he was finally done with this girl and that it had been hard enough. He went on to say that there was not much time left, and so they needed to find Liu Feinian and Sun Xiuchu as soon as possible. But the boss came at him with a sword, saying that there are devils in a quiet pool. Seeing this, Ding Xiao thought that he wanted to kill him before, but he didn't retaliate because of the rules. But now he knows about the instability of his spirit form, and so he thought that he probably shouldn't be left alive. But no sooner had the boss touched him with his sword, Zhang Tianxing immediately appeared and said that he never thought that they would actually be able to deal with the possessed phase master, and also added that he had underestimated them. He was surprised that it was possible with such a spirit form. But after that, he also said that since they had almost exhausted their spirit powers, they would probably not be able to leave this place. And then he ordered them to be detained. As he left, he thanked them for clearing the path and said goodbye for good. Ding Xiao thought about the fact that Zhang Tianxing had seen his spiritual form from the beginning, and that was why he had ambushed him, and that he definitely shouldn't be left alive after something like this. Ding Xiao then asked the boss if he could still fight, to which the boss replied that he could still use his spirit incarnation. After that, Ding Xiao said that he would leave him this spren and he would return the wooden figurines in the meantime. Next, Ding Xiao realized that he had gained better control over his body and that it was most likely because he had absorbed the evil spirit powers, but he wasn't completely sure about it. One of the disciples of the spiritual department saw Ding Xiao flying away very quickly and thought that such a thing was not possible even with a speed talisman. He didn't understand how this was even possible. The cadaver boss, meanwhile, attacked him and told him to stay focused. After Ding Xiao got to Zhang Tianxing, he was waiting for Miao Sun, not expecting to see him, and thought that it was very strange. After all, he had sensed the aura of a possessed person and that there was obviously something wrong, so he should carefully consider every step. Next, Zhang Tianxing activated his rank, Armored Bullmaster Phase Spirit, and told Ding Xiang that he could try to take away the taken servants. Ding Xiao said that in that case, he would not blame him in the end for being rude, and he decided to fight Zhang Tianxing. Zhang Tianxing replied to him that he had an unstable form, and such should be destroyed. He also said that he would report it to the corpse department today. Next, Ding Xiao asked for forgiveness and pierced through Zhang Tianxing's spiritual form. The latter thought that it was impossible and without realizing how it happened told him that he was going to die a horrible death. To which Ding Xiao told him that if he was possessed, there would be nothing left of him by now. Zhang Tianxing told him that he would take him to the other world with him at some point. Meanwhile, the boss, finding the wooden figurine, said that who he was before turning into a figurine couldn't die so easily. After the battle with Zhang Tiaosun, Ding Xiao moved to some pond, and without finding Xiao Jian, he thought that perhaps he had been carried downstream and that this place was full of spiritual energy similar to the grottos of immortals. Next, he discovered Lycoris goldensis and remembered that the secrets of the corpse department said that these flowers possessed inconceivable spiritual energy and that everything then fell into place. At this moment, the spirit told him that cultivation in this place was much faster and that he could break through to the level of a 9-star spiritual practitioner. Ding Xiao thanked him for the information and said that he would do so. Ding Xiao then turned mentally in meditation to Hou Yi and said that he would be back soon and asked him to wait for him. Meanwhile, the boss and Hou Yi came to the secret realm. The boss's lair and Hou Yi found Sister Liu and brother Xun there and told the boss about it, to which the boss told him that there was something strange about that pool of blood and asked him to be careful. And there was a possessed phase, master of level 3, a bloodthirsty dead man who turned to his glorious granddaughter and said that she was good for not disappointing her grandfather. This was the very same grandfather of the very same girl. Hou Yi, seeing his grandfather, told the boss that there was no way they could defeat a level 3 master and that he didn't understand what was wrong with this test. Meanwhile, the boss said to run away from that place, which he proceeded to do. Grandpa saw them running away and told them that food shouldn't run away and that he didn't like it. Meanwhile, the spirit told Ding Xiao during his meditation that he congratulated him for reaching the level of a 9-star soul disciple, and that in terms of strength, he was more powerful than a level 1 soul master. After coming out of meditation, he told the spirit that he didn't know that the spirit was capable of absorbing both demonic and spiritual energy. After absorbing it, cultivation would definitely go much faster. But he suddenly noticed the con thing. It was to his mind a familiar demonic energy that he hadn't noticed in this place before, for back then everything was overflowing with energy. When he found the coffin and approached it, he found that it didn't have the seal of the talismanic department on it, so he thought it must have been used for a test. But it looked like someone had moved it and he couldn't feel the energy in the coffin. When he opened the coffin, he saw the bodies of his granddaughter and her grandfather and was very surprised. Even in the secrets of the corpse department, there was no mention of the soul being separated from the body to create a demon. He even thought that it might be intended as a test. He also thought about the fact that the level of these demons was much higher than the test participants and that this could be a test of their reactions and finding weaknesses in the enemy. But it also seemed strange to him that it seemed that the girl must be carrying something in her hands, and it looked like someone had already been to this place and taken something very important away. Meanwhile, Grandpa grabbed the boss and Hou Yi, who they couldn't handle as Grandpa was too strong. At this, Grandpa said that Xiao Bao was good and that he would make soup for her now. The girl's figure told him that it was a pity that they had missed the tastiest ones in her opinion. But the grandfather answered her that it was all right and that he could already smell the delicious little man nearby. When the grandfather saw Ding Xiao, he also said that he had never thought that Ding Xiao would come to him. But Ding Xiao came with a coffin containing the bodies of the grandfather and his granddaughter, which the grandfather had not noticed yet. The captured Hou Yi told Ding Xiao that it was great that he was fine and came to them. His boss complimented him that this bloodthirsty dead man was a level 3 demon, and so one should be as careful as possible with him. Ding Xiao, meanwhile, thought that today he would fulfill the duty of the corpse department, namely to destroy the demon. The girl figure noticed the coffin and told her grandfather about it, but he calmed her down and told her it was okay. The grandfather further told Ding Xiao that he was brave enough, but warned that if he dared to destroy his granddaughter's body, he would skin him in that case. Ding Xiao thought at that moment that by acting as bait, he would be able to trap his grandfather. And Ding Xiao began to recite further so that the evil spirit would leave the body and the soul would find tranquility, letting go of all grudges. The girl figure asked her grandfather to chop Ding Xiao to death. Grandfather in turn tried to do this as much as possible, putting his best efforts into it. And Ding Xiao tried to save himself as best he could in the current situation. Grandpa eventually managed to grab him and told him he was full of faults and asked him if he was eager to get into the soup. He also said that he would cut off his head and make meat soup. Meanwhile, Ding Xiao had approached his grandfather as much as possible and thought that he was already close enough and that it was already time to attack him. Next, Ding Xiao activated the Qilin Pearl and told Grandpa that if he liked the soup so much, he would let him taste the power of the Qilin Pearl. Grandpa turned to the girl figure at that moment and told her that he was fine for now and that as long as Grandpa was there for her, she would eat her soup. After defeating his grandfather and recovering the prisoners, Hou Yi turned to Ding Xiao and said that he was great and that he couldn't believe that he had managed to defeat a rank 3 master. To which Ding Xiao replied that this was not the end. After that, Ding Xiao told everyone to leave and call the corpse department for help. Meanwhile, he would apprehend the bloodthirsty dead man. He further added that this was their only chance to survive, so he asked everyone to leave. After saying that, the boss and Hao Yi took Liu and Shun and left, telling him to try to stay alive until they returned. After they left, Grandpa asked Ding Xiao to make it up to him for missing those soup ingredients, to which Ding Xiao replied to him that he would help him rest in peace. On the way, they suddenly met Zhao Zhan, who told them that every road was narrow for the enemies. Shun looked at this and said that it looked like Xiao Zhan was holding a bowl that was a demon relic in his hand and filling it with his blood. After which, the boss asked Xiao Zhan how dare he donate his blood to strengthen the demon. He further said that it was no wonder now that he had promised that no one from the corpse department would be able to pass the test, to which Xiao Zhan replied that he was seriously injured because of which he was at the failure stage, and that relic was originally meant to be used in the trial in his opinion, but now they wouldn't be able to leave because of him. Hao Yi further said that Ding Xiao said that the grandfather is related to the granddaughter, and the granddaughter likes soup, so according to his assumption, the bowl could be the key to pacify the demon. The boss replied that the support from the corpse department would take a long time, and Xiao Zhan's strength was running low, so his plan was to take the bowl away from him. Xiao Zhan said that it was true that he couldn't fight anymore, but now he had comrades. The boss, seeing all this, asked him how dare he use corpses, being a minister of the spiritual department. The boss then spoke out that the heart was born from the mind and body were in harmony, and the spirit phase possessed the body. After these words, he activated his spirit and began to fight the dead. Liu Feinian said that if it goes on like this, her brother won't last long, and soon decided to help the boss despite his condition. Hu Yi took out the flower that Ding Xiao had given him before they left, thinking that he couldn't let him down since he had decided to do so. Next, he asked the flower to use its power to make the evil spirits disappear. At some point, all the dead people stopped functioning, doing Xiao Zhan's will, and Hao Yi thought that he would no longer be a burden to Din Xiao and the other corpse department attendants. Further lifting up the exhausted Hao Yi, Liu Feinian said that he had used his blood to activate the Buddha flower and added that in her opinion, this act was rather foolish. Xiao Zhan was astonished by this, not understanding where he got the Buddha flower from. It seemed to him that his plan was flawless and such a thing shouldn't have happened. To which his boss told him that his speeches were best left for the spiritual department. Then taking the bowl from him, he added that if he understood correctly, this bowl was the key to destroying the demon. After that, he ordered everyone to look after Xiao Zhan while he went after Ding Xiao. Meanwhile, the battle continued. The girl doll still couldn't calm down and asked to chop Ding Xiao, and the grandfather agreed with her, because after a long chopping, the meat becomes quite hard, so we should hurry. And no sooner had Grandpa swung his sword, Ding Xiao immediately activated the demon restraining formation. After restraining, the girl figure told her grandfather that they were trapped. To which the grandfather replied to her that Ding Xiao couldn't trap him and that it couldn't be. Ding Xiao realized that the formation would only hold him for a short while, and he didn't know when the others would be able to find the key to deal with the demon. But procrastination, in his opinion, wouldn't solve the problem either, and he asked the spirit if he still had any strength left. To which the spirit responded by suggesting that he take this grandfather's life. At some point, Grandpa got free and swung his sword and asked Ding Xiao to use his tail because he really wants to cut it off. Ding Xiao asked his grandfather if he thought he couldn't get rid of him and if he really wanted to cut off his tail. He then told him that he would see if he could handle it. And he further attacked the grandfather, saying that the energy of the little demon was tasty enough, but the demonic energy in his body he wants to taste even stronger, because it should be tastier according to his assumption. Next, he wondered if it was really the energy of a mere human, for it was quite terrifying and several times stronger than his. But not before he took the energy from his grandfather. And he couldn't do it because he was called out by his boss, who at that moment ordered him to catch the bowl. When he saw the bowl and his granddaughter's energy on it, he realized that it was a missing relic from the coffin that was the key. But it wasn't him who caught the bowl, it was his grandfather. And he heard from this bowl that it smelled very good, and he offered it to his granddaughter Xiaobai to drink. Xiaobai's granddaughter somehow tasted the soup, which is not seen there in any way, and said that the soup is really delicious. Ding Xiao further asked the boss if they were really possessed by this bowl. Ding Xiao further said that the time had come and spoke over the coffin, he and the boss together, that ashes to ashes, earth to earth. The man of Qi worried about the integrity of the sky and that let the soul return to rest. With these words, they laid the souls of the grandfather and granddaughter to rest, after which they sealed the coffin. The story then moves on to a grandfather and his granddaughter, who is lying on the floor and asks the grandfather if she is dying, because she is very ill. The grandfather replies that she is fine and that he doesn't know what she is talking about. And in his mind, he was actually thinking that the guards and army were following hot on his heels and that he didn't understand what to do about Bai's illness. The girl goes on to ask her grandfather why mom and dad went with them while holding a mom and dad doll, and she also said she misses her mom's soup. Her grandfather told her that they had gone to a distant land and would be back soon. He also told her that if she wanted soup, he could make it for her tonight. He then went to the kitchen, from where he was thrown out like a stinking beggar. The grandfather asked the Lord to give him a piece of pork to make soup, for his family had not eaten meat for months, and offered in exchange even his armor and plate, which could be pawned for a few coins. But the gentleman, instead of giving him a piece of pork, told him that he was a relic of the past from a past dynasty. He also asked why people like him were still alive. So he began to beat his grandfather along with the other lords. They said that because of him they lived in poverty and cursed him while they beat him. The grandfather realized at that moment that he would never get pork for his soup. But nevertheless, he eventually made the soup and brought it to his granddaughter Bai. Bai's granddaughter tasted the soup made by her grandfather and said it was delicious. Grandpa was very happy because he was willing to do anything to make her a delicious soup. But sometime later, without even waiting for his granddaughter to finish her soup, the grandfather died. Bai asked him what had happened to him, but it was no use. Bai noticed that her grandfather's hands were missing, as they had been cut off, and the girl was very upset because she had no one else to make soup for her. As it turned out, the soup was from her grandfather's remains. Next, a gentleman came in and brought people to them. These people said they had to kill them all, including the children. After all that, they killed both the grandfather permanently and the granddaughter. The granddaughter thought that one day she would make them pay in blood. That's the story of this grandfather and granddaughter. Next, Ding Xiao and the boss looked at their bodies, and Ding Xiao said that during the war of the two countries, they were displaced and the general was in that position. To which the boss replied to him that they were ruled by ghosts and spirits and that it was none of their business. And then Ding Xiao suggested that in such a case, he would do their duty and give them a proper send-off. The boss completely agreed with him, and they began to spell out that it is difficult to explain love longing. The soul in the realm of dreams is without support, and the only thing left to do is to return. Then they activated the wish fulfillment talisman and used it to give Bai girl back her mother and father, whom she had once lost. After mom and dad returned, the girl showed them the dolls she had made to look very much like them. Mom told her that she had made her some delicious meat soup. The girl thanked the servants and they left in peace. Next, the boss raised the talisman. Ding Xiao asked if it was Ling Shu's evil talisman, to which the boss replied that they were not finished with the spiritual department yet. And then at one point, Ding Xiao and his boss came out of the realm. One disciple of the spiritual department said when he saw them that the faces of the two looked like demons pissing themselves after being frightened. Another disciple complimented him that the ordeal had been a great success for the spiritual department and suggested a celebration. The other ministers thought they didn't know how they could pass with a coffin bearer and that they only embarrassed themselves more with him. Zhang Tianxing told Commander Lin that it was not necessary to be able to carry coffins or heal souls and that strength was the main thing. To which Lin replied that carrying coffins and resting souls was the essence of his corpse department. Liu Feinian asked from the spiritual department to come over and say hello to her brother Xiao Zhan. Just then, Zhang asked why Xiao was captured. Lin also asked if the corporeal division had won, and the master of the spirit department said that it was not possible because Xiao Zhan is a soul master and that he could not lose. The boss replied to them that fortunately they had passed the test despite all the cries that they were failures. Lin told Zhang that Miao Xun's team had won despite taking the burden with them, but the group of soul masters from the spirit department had lost to the group of soul disciples from the corporeal department, and now they were wondering how he would look at them next. Meanwhile, Lu Feinian said that Jiao Zhan had broken the rules, controlled demons and evil spirits, killed his colleagues, and seriously injured a member of the corpse department. After which she asked if after all this, she couldn't even tie him up. Lin turned his attention to her and asked what was going on here. He didn't know what she was talking about. Zhang thought that since the corpse department had completed the trial, the other departments would definitely suspend their elimination. And Xiao Zhan was a loser in his opinion who was good for nothing. Ding Xiao approached Commander Lin that Liu's words were true and Hao and Xun's wounds were proof of that, and usually the spirits of the secret realm trials match the strength of the disciples and should be level 8, but they had encountered master-level spirits. Afterwards, Lin turned to Zhang and asked if the spiritual department felt so much for his corpse department that they decided to interfere and kill their colleagues. To which Zhang replied to him that all the evidence belonged to his corporeal department and that his spiritual department was now offended. But Ding Xiao interrupted their argument. He said that things can't lie unlike humans, then showed Ling Shu's talisman and said that it was left behind by an evil spirit after his return, proving that the spirit department was trying to harm the corpse department. Lin recognized the item and said that it was indeed Lin Shu's unique evil talisman used to destroy and attract evil spirits. Based on this item, he asked Zhang what he could say about his spiritual department. Zhang looked at Xiao Zhang and thought that he couldn't be allowed to tell on him, because if he revealed the plans of the spiritual department, everything would be ruined, and after thinking about it, he killed Xiao Zhang. After that, Lin turned to Zhang and asked how he dared to kill and silence Xiao Zhan in public. To which the latter replied that Xiao Zhan was incompetent and vicious and unable to pass even a small test. He further added that his spiritual department punishes disciples and that the corporeal department should not decide and interfere. He also asked Lin if he wanted to stir up enmity between the departments, to which he was told by the corpse department that they would find evidence sooner or later. And the disciples from the spiritual department said in turn that now that the trial was over, they had no need to listen to the nonsense of the corporeal department, whereupon they left. Next, Zhang approached Ding Xiao and asked him how he dared to stop the head of the spiritual department. Ding Xiao replied that he wouldn't dare, but there was one thing he wanted to remind him of. He further added that he had said that he would publicly apologize if someone from the corpse department passed the test, but so far he had not fulfilled his promise. And he had heard that Zhang was a man of his word and that he couldn't lie. Ding Xiao was also supported by the rest of the corpse division disciples, forcing Zhang to fulfill his promise and apologize to them. Zhang fulfilled his promise afterwards and apologized to the corpse department, but mentally thought that sooner or later, the corpse department would be destroyed no matter what. Commander Lin then approached Ding Xiao and told him that since he had passed the test, he was now a level 9 disciple and that he was no longer a coffin bearer, but a protector. A joyful Ding Xiao thought that he had finally waited for this day and that after that, he would be able to enter the secret treasure pavilion, find the magic pills, and cure his sister of her illness. The secret treasure pavilion held the treasures and talismans of the Zhenling Division's corpse division, and only the protectors and soul restorers from the corpse division could enter, which was where Ling Xiao went one day. At the entrance, the guard told him that the defenders could only choose one concealed object to take out, then let him through when he provided proof that he was a defender. The secret treasure pavilion is divided into 4 floors, namely the heavenly, hidden, golden, and earthly floors. The heavenly floor is on the topmost floor, and the higher the floor, the higher the grade of the treasures stored there, and the higher the rank of the defender must be. Remembering that one could only take one item, Ding Xiao thought that it looked like he would have to work hard to find a higher level elixir for Liner. After some time of searching, he found a tea rubber that was mentioned in the secrets of the corpse department that warded off evil spirits and removed strange marks, and thought that this medicine would definitely help Liner. But Xun came in at that moment and said that Ho Yi was dying. Then they went to the resting place of the corpse department. The doctor who examined Hao Yi said that there was nothing he could do about the evil flower and its roots. And when Ding Xiao asked what else they could do, he said that they should prepare for the worst. The boss told him that it was their fault for not watching him, and he ended up behaving so recklessly. But after that, he hit the boss and told him that in the secret realm he had fetched him and Ho Yi for his own selfish interests and asked if he should settle accounts with him. They tried to apologize to him, to make excuses, but he resolutely proceeded to beat everyone up, saying that they could leave idle talk to the spirits. Liu Feinian asked him to calm down, but Ding Xiao answered her by asking why then, when he and Ho Yi were hurt, she didn't ask to calm herself down. After a little more competition, he said that if he wasn't as strong as they were, he would have been the one to get hurt in the end. But Hao Yi suddenly woke up and shifted all of Ding Xiao's attention to himself. Hao Yi told Ding Xiao that Liu Feinian saved him, so they are even. Liu Feinian then thanked him for those words. The boss also told him that it was all their own fault and apologized. He further added that no matter how hard it was, they would find a way to save Hao Yi. Ding Xiao told them in response that if Ho Yi was indeed all right, the matter would be written off, but if anything happened to him, he would make them pay for it with their lives. Lin told Ding Xiao that he had never come across any cases of Buddha flower parasitism and asked him to go to the library of the corpse department and look for something. But he had already been there and there was no record of it in the records. Next, he returned home to his sister Liner's house and saw someone there next to his sister. Liner told him he was finally back and offered to look at who had come to visit them. He saw Bayi in front of him and thought that times were changing and that she had become the academy's top student while he had only reached 9th grade. He greeted her and she greeted him. Bai Shi then asked him how he was, as it had been a while since they had last seen each other. Liner also told Ding Xiao that Bai Shi had brought them some delicious food. Ding Xiao confirmed in response that it had indeed been a very long time since they had last seen each other. Bai Shi then turned to Liner and told her that she had something to discuss with Ding Xiao and suggested that she go to the house and rest there for a while. Liner agreed and then went into the house. Ding Xiao was very surprised and wondered in his mind how she could know the fact that he was looking for the Buddha flower cure. She went on to say that she had the means to get the former and that the herb was rumored to be in Dunhuang. Then she held out a bone in her hand, which she asked him to take, for she would show him the exact place. Ding Xiao accepted the bone and asked her if it was only to help her come to him or if there was some other reason for her coming that he didn't know, to which Bai Shi revealed that she was investigating the six-eyed spider incident. Hearing this, he was very surprised that someone else was investigating what happened that day, and that person was Bai Shi. And Bai Shi began to ask questions about what had happened that day. Ding Xiao replied to her that she should have checked the archives of that day. He said that a six-eyed blood spider had attacked him and his two brothers, and that he had been rescued by an unknown master. He thought that if he told the truth, he would be treated like an unclean person. But she kept asking what the master looked like, what his spirit and rank were, what secret techniques he used, and more. He said he'd vaguely seen him in a black and gold robe with a bone hairpin on his head and a strange tattoo on his face. But he was only a porter then, so he knew nothing about ranks or secret techniques. This led Bai Shi to think that when Grandpa was alive, he had talked about the Tiandao organization and that it might be them. But they had disappeared 20 years ago, and it wasn't clear why they were active again. It all appeared to be overheard by the head, and it was good that Ding Xiao didn't say anything unnecessary, because it could really end very badly for him. After answering the questions, Bai Shi said that she had to go back to the academy. He asked her what about the investigation, to which she replied that it was none of his business and that he should go to Dunhuang to rescue Hou Yi. Before she left, she also said that there had been a change in Dunhuang recently and that the pendant she held out to him in her hand would help him a lot. He took the pendant from her and asked her why her hands were so cold, because he felt a very strong chill on them. Bai Shi told him that it was probably just because of the cold night. Bai Shi then said that she urgently needed to leave, and after saying that, she hurried quickly through the gate to leave. Ding Xiao saw her off, and on the one hand he was glad that she had left since she was on the wire, but on the other hand he wanted to be with her longer. Already at the gate, she told him that it would take about a month for the flower to take full possession of Hou Yi, and that it was for this reason that the necessary herb should be found as soon as possible, and she promised him that she would take care of the rest. She also said that she was happy to see him, and then she said goodbye and finally left. Ding Xiao could not think that she trusted him so much, but he unfortunately had to hide the truth because it would be dangerous to reveal it. At this moment, Liner came out and asked Ding Xiao if Bai Shi had already left. Ding Xiao answered her in the affirmative and said that she had to leave very urgently, which she did as a result. He further told her that he had found tea rubber in the secret treasure pavilion of the corpse department, which should slow down the growth of her second face. When she heard about the secret treasure pavilion, she was very excited. After all, she knew that this was a place where only soul protectors and soul restorers could enter, which meant that her brother Ding Xiao was now no longer a coffin bearer in the corpse department, and she wondered who he was now. To Liner's curious question as to what he was now, he replied that he was now a protector. And after answering her question, he suggested that she try the tea rubber, for he thought it would help her sister. When he started the tea rubber trial, he thought at that moment that finally, after so many years of suffering, things were getting better for him, and he hoped that things would get better for her sister after using tea rubber. Ding Xiao further told his sister that when he returned from Dunhuang, he would definitely search all the treasures in the world to not only halt the development, but also completely cure her illness, as it couldn't last long. He also told his sister to remember to adjust the bandage. His sister told him that he had just returned, and after being away for a short time, he was going so far away again. He told her that Hou Yi was sick and he should find herbs to cure him. He went on to say that she shouldn't worry because her brother was different now and he would be fine. Liner only told him to be careful because she was worried about him, as he was the only one she had left. After he left the house, he told her to take care of herself while he was away, and if there was any trouble, to go to the department and find Liner's superior. Sister Liner replied that she understood and that she would wait for his return. After seeing her brother off on a long journey, she went into the house and felt a very strong pain on the place of the two-face, and thought that it was probably because of the medicine that her brother had put on her and that she should be patient for a while, after which it would definitely go away. The cadaver department is a place of peace and tranquility where all known and unknown corpses will be sent to the department's burial hall, where they will then be escorted home by students of the cadaver department. They will be escorted home by the same students. Ding Xiao came there after leaving home and was spotted by Commander Lin, who had already heard from Bayi that he was going to Dunhuang to search for the 8 Earth Spirits herb, and that he was going to take on a coffin delivery mission, and asked if it was right. Ding Xiao greeted Commander Lin, saying that he was very happy to meet him because he might not have been in the corpse department when he came there. He also said that what he had heard was correct and that he wanted to take over the mission. He also added that the client was a rich businessman from Dunhuang and that the reward would be many times higher than a normal assignment. He also said that Ding Ling was in poor health, so there were many places that would pay him well. Ding Xiao thanked Commander Lin for his trouble, after which Lin told him that since he had become a protector, wasn't it time for him to look for a coffin bearer and some assistants, and hinted that the ones he was with recently would be very good. To which Ding Xiao replied that he could very well handle it himself. After all, he couldn't trust anyone considering that as soon as someone sees his spiritual form, immediately that same person wants to kill him for his unstable form. Commander Lin still told him that he was a good guy, but he also asked to borrow a wooden nail that could destroy any master-level demon and said that he didn't feel like letting him go without it. Ding Xiao looked at the wooden nail that was taken from an ancient tree and remembered that the value of one such nail was equal to the value of the defender's entire possessions, and was very surprised that Commander Lin was willing to lend it to him. Without a second thought, he took it and set out on his journey. On the 6th day of the journey, the sky cleared and the chance of evil things decreased accordingly. At some point, he thought it was getting late enough that he needed to find a place to sleep. Finding some nearby house, Ding Xiao walked up to it, knocked on the door and asked if there was anyone inside. A man came out to him and asked him what was the matter. Ding Xiao told him that he was from the Xiaojian Corpse Department on a mission, and then he asked him if he had a place to stay for the night. Hearing about the corpse department, the man asked him how he could let him stay the night with what he was carrying behind his back. After all, anything could happen at any time. Ding Xiao replied to the man that he was carrying the coffin very easily because there was no one there. And besides, he was a protector, and even if something happened, he would be able to handle everything, even if ghosts appeared or something else. After hearing Ding Xiao's reply, the man calmed down and invited him inside. Ding Xiao thought that there were no demons in this corpse, so it was better to say so than to cause the man to panic unnecessarily. Inviting him into the house, before entering the house, the man told him that they had a small family, so he was sorry that he could only give him a very dirty room, as he had no other room available, and asked if it needed to be cleaned. Ding Xiao replied to the man that there was no need to clear the room of rubbish and that he could do it all himself. The man then said that he understood and that he should call him if he needed anything else. Entering the room after the man had left, Ding Xiao thought that this was quite a strange place, so he should be very careful. While already in the room, Ding Xiao began to meditate with the thoughts that he had reached the 9th level of Soul Man in the secret realm, and that it was now time to try to break through to the Master. After all, he didn't want to stop at the result he had achieved. While in the spirit world, his spirit greeted him, and Ding Xiao told him that his time had come. And he began to recite words that spoke of the glittering gold in his hands, the living heart, the manifested heavens, and the 100 paths. Meanwhile, all the golden talismans were gradually disappearing, and Ding Xiao said, addressing the spirit, that he was already very close, and that there was only a little more to go. At one point, he found the chains suddenly appearing and had no way of knowing why they were once again trying to stop him. After that, he said that he was just Ding Xiao, who just wanted to survive in the cruel world he lived in, after which he asked who was stopping him and for what reason. He could not understand what these chains were, where they came from, and why someone was very strongly and persistently preventing him from developing his soul phase. But no one answered him except the spirit. The spirit apologized to Ding Xiao and told him that the power of the golden talisman was too strong for him. Ding Xiao replied to him that it was okay and that they would try next time, and told him to remember that he was his spiritual phase and he wouldn't give up. After a while, the man turned to Ding Xiao and said that their family had prepared a meal and invited him to the table to feed him. So Ding Xiao went with him to the table. When the man came to the house, after paying attention to the dish, he said that this dish was not so fatty and interesting and apologized for it. Ding Xiao said that it was fine and that he was already very happy that he could eat it. All of a sudden, the man and his father began to quarrel. The father said that he was fed up and that he really wanted to eat noodles and meat, not what they had. The man told him that he couldn't eat noodles because they didn't have any. Hearing this, Ding Xiao turned to them, apologized to them for their trouble, and offered to go and buy meat for them the next day. In the meantime, the old man heard this and started to pull something and put it in his mouth. Ding Xiao was frightened and said that it was not meat and should not be eaten at all. At one point, the old man ate something he shouldn't have eaten, and suddenly some spirit appeared, and the old man told Ding Xiao to try some meat, for it seems very tasty to him. Seeing the situation, Ding Xiao immediately activated the heavenly spirit. Grandfather said that he was in a lot of pain and to stop doing what he was doing. The man wanted to stop him, but Ding Xiao stopped him and told him to stay back and look carefully at what was happening to his father. The demon tried to escape from Ding Xiao, realizing who he was, but Ding Xiao killed him in the end. Ding Xiao further told the man that he was sorry for his loss and that the old man's organs and memory had been eaten by the raccoon he saw after mentioning the meat. He also thought that if he had arrived earlier, this might not have happened. At some point, Ding Xiao noticed purple cabbage, and according to his information, only people from Dunhuang eat such cabbage. He then asked the man if he had ever been to Dunhuang. The man replied to him that there was a play being shown in Dunhuang a few days ago, and that was why he and his father had gone there. After this answer, Ding Xiao thought to himself that it looked like the raccoon had first lived in Dunhuang, and at some point it had possessed the old man when he was watching the play. But he also thought about the fact that the raccoon liked noisy places the most, and based on this information, he didn't understand why he was hiding in a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, and that there might be something in Dunhuang that he was very afraid of. Then he remembered that he must go to Dunhuang to find herbs, and after these thoughts, he said goodbye to the man, took the coffin and went on his way to Dunhuang. At some point, he finally made it to Dunhuang for the first time. At the entrance to the city, he was told that a man carrying a coffin was not welcome in this place and was told that he had better hurry up and leave. Ding Xiao showed his badge and said that he was a protector of the corpse department and that he had come to do a mission in Dunhuang. To which the guards told him that he could pass through in that case, but not to get into trouble. After the guards let him through, after he passed, they started saying that it was very strange that another coffin had arrived because recently a coffin had already arrived at this place. When he entered the town, he thought there was something wrong because the streets were very quiet and empty. But even so, he decided to take the coffin to the Li family's destination first. Walking down the street, he heard someone addressing some Tao and said that it was possible to steal the fetters in the sky, the body bound with 5 senses and 8 touches, so that he would not return to their home. He also said that since ancient times the heavenly phase is born and the master shows his strength. And some man thanked in his master Ji saying all this. And Ding Xiao thought that it was some local case. At one point, the spirit told Ding Xiao that it was some very strong evil spirit. Ding Xiao asked his spirit where the energy of the very evil spirit he had told him about was coming from. The spirit answered him that this energy was everywhere. The spirit also added that the smell of this evil spirit was simply disgusting. Ding Xiao immersed himself and saw it all with his own eyes. But at some point, someone knocked on his coffin and called out. And he came out of this state where he saw everything. As it turned out, he was approached by Yang Shu, a level 7 protector, and it also turned out that he knew Ding Xiao, for he recognized him and addressed him by name. Yang Shu introduced who he was and told Ding Xiao that he could just call him Yang. He then added that he also happened to be in this place on a mission and that Commander Lin had asked him to take care of him. He then introduced his colleagues to him, namely Fang Hai, a level 8 defender, and Lan Ju, who was also a level 8 defender. He said that they were both very friendly, so there was no need to be too ceremonious with them as well. He then asked Ding Xiao if he wanted to know what kind of group of people that had just walked and that he had just seen. To which Ding Xiao said that it was the first time he had seen such a strange custom, and of course he wanted to know more. And Yang Shu began the story that they wear animal masks and are called Genji, and that they brainwash people by making them believe in a certain Grandpa Master Ji to make money. Ding Xiao asked if it's a cult, why don't they get rid of it? To which Yang Shu told him that Dunhuang was so full of shit that the government didn't care about it at all, and besides, it was just a bunch of crippled children with no power. Meanwhile, Ding Xiao thought that not all of them were like him, but they had spiritual power, he felt, and that most of those who didn't have power could only earn by the hardest labor or believing in gods for the sake of avoiding suffering. Next, Yang Shu interrupted his musings and said that the mission was more important and that the Li family to whom he should bring the body was a big family in Dunhuang and that they had done them many favors. He also offered to take him there on a diversion to those cultists. Ding Xiao agreed with him, and off they went. As they walked, Ding Xiao thought about how it was some strange religion and evil energy everywhere, and that Dunhuang's problems were obviously more serious than he thought, and that they needed to finish the delivery and find a cure sooner. Upon arrival, they were greeted, and Li Zhen said that he apologized as he was not well enough to receive them in person, and he further asked to take a look at his son. Ding Xiao told him that it could be dangerous, but Yang Shu reassured him and told him that it was fine because he was nearby, and so nothing very bad could happen. After that, they opened the coffin. Li Zhen walked up to it, recognized his son Dyer, and asked him why he hadn't thought about what he could do in the future without waiting for an answer from him. He went on to say that alas, the old man had few women, and after a long time a pearl was born, but he still ended up like this, and that it was a curse, and that it looked like God wanted his whole family to die out. Next, Li Zhen asks Mr. Yang if there is an auspicious date for the funeral, to which Yang Shu replies that there isn't yet, but if they bury the body before the evil spirits leave, it will cause a lot of trouble. To which Li Zhen said that in that case, he wanted to place the body in the backyard and bury it later, and asked the servants to prepare good guest rooms. Bringing the coffin to the backyard, they saw that it was immediately visited by shamans who spoke of covering the squalor of life, realizing cyclicality, sending the gods to the 9 heavens for their salvation, and much more. Yang Shu said that the rich like to hire shamans for themselves to soothe their souls, and that they would just watch to make sure nothing bad happens. Ding Xiao asked Yang Shu if he had heard of the 8 earth spirits herb, to which Yang Shu replied to him that he had a few techniques that could definitely help him find the exact location. But now that Dunhuang was in turmoil, the evil spirits would affect the effect of the techniques, so it was worth starting after a lull. Ding Xiao asked what was going on in this place. Yang Shu replied that it was a long story and began by saying that half a month ago, strange things started happening frequently, and the locals started losing things in their houses. He went on to say that at first it was just pots and pans, but then livestock started disappearing, and after that people started disappearing. The spiritual department suspects that it is an evil spirit, so they are investigating it. He further added that he and his 2 colleagues had been investigating for half a month, but still hadn't achieved anything. Meanwhile, Ding Xiao thought that he was level 7, but he had already been investigating for half a month to find out what was going on. After thinking about it, Ding Xiao asked Yang Shu how he could help them. Yang Shu replied that there was no need for him to interfere in this as they had already thought of one way, but he would have to think about the herb for a while. But at some point, they noticed that some spirits appeared near them and something inexplicable began to happen. After seeing this, Yang Shu decided to sort it all out and ran to those spirits rather, calling Feng Hai and Lan Zhou along with him. Running up to the spirit, they began to seal it in the formation with words about the return of the master, dispersing the soul and creating a 4-cloud formation. The spirit, before sealing itself up, finally told them that it was long over with them and that sooner or later they would all be eaten. After that, they sealed the coffin and put new talismans on it. Yang Shu said afterwards that nothing would have happened if the corpse hadn't been touched in broad daylight, but this bunch of losers had ruined everything. Ding Xiao asked Yang Shu what the spirit meant by saying that they would be eaten. In response, Yang Shu told Ding Xiao that it was just a spirit possessing the body and not to dwell on it. Yang Shu further told the shamans that the talismans would not fall off from rain or wind, and that the coffin should never be touched or moved before it was buried, and if the body suddenly rose again, he warned that in that case they might die. Yang Shu then told Ding Xiao that they had to go to the south of the city on business, so he was leaving him and instructed him not to contact Genji when he left, because if he did, he would get into trouble. After Yang Shu left with Feng Hai and Lan Zhou, Ding Xiao thought that now that the coffin delivery was over, he should hurry up and find some herbs. He also thought that he might not be able to save Ho Yi in time and was very worried about it. Then he went and knocked on the door of some house. The man answered his questions and said that he had never heard of the herb of the 8 spirits of the earth and that he should leave his door as soon as possible, as he did not want to be caught by the cultists. Ding Xiao further wondered where the herb could be in such a case, if even the locals hadn't heard of it. And the amulet doesn't react that Bai Shi gave him. He even wondered if there was no such herb he was looking for in Dunhuang at all. His grandmother told him that it was the same thing that was given to half-immortals and that Grandpa could bless anyone with it. Ding Xiao thought about the fact that cultists were also called that. He went on to tell her that he was looking for something and that he had not yet had a chance to meet the half-dead. The grandmother in turn asked if he was also looking for the herb 8 spirits of the earth. He asked how she knew that. The grandmother replied by saying that half an hour ago, 3 young men dressed exactly like him had asked about it. And then Ding Xiao wondered if it could be Miao Shun's company, or if it was someone else after all. The grandmother went on to say that the herb of the 8 spirits of the earth was in the hands of the halflings in the temple of the city god, and that since she liked him, that's why she said it to him, and said that she didn't tell those 3 young ones. After that, they went to a certain door. The grandmother knocked and said to open the door, and that the half-immortals would give her a blessing. Meanwhile, Ding Xiao wondered why the old woman appeared at the right moment to help him. He further thought that it was hard to find a clue, and it looked like the thread led to the temple of the city god, and that one should go there. After a short thought, he went there, and seeing what and how it was there, he thought that the temple was very dilapidated, and that there were no signs of people in it, and it did not look like they had been here recently. But at that moment, those same half-immortals approached him as Master Grandpa Ji, and said that they had been waiting for him and that they had finally met, and that now he would not be able to leave this place. Ding Xiao asked what kind of tricks they were up to, turning to the Genji cultists, and he began to activate the talismans. But they turned to him in response and told him that his tricks were useless and that none of this would work on them. As they approached him, they told him not to worry and that they were not going to harm him after all. They just wanted to get something from him. Ding Xiao wondered what they wanted. But one of them further said that it was his life. Activating the speed talisman, he began to run away quickly. The cultists began to chase after him and asked him what he was doing, why he was running away, because in the end, they thought he would die anyway. One of the cultivators thought aloud, "Is Master Ji such a weakling after all? He only runs away without even trying to fight for his life." Another said that he was pathetic and made a lot of unnecessary noise in his opinion. Having already been sealed with chains with Ding Xiao's help, one of the cultivators said that he liked that Master Ji was starting to get angry and that it was very good. Ding Xiao for a moment wondered why his phase energy in his body had suddenly become so raging and a bit uncontrollable, and turned to his spirit to ask him if he was there and what was going on in general. One of the cultivators meanwhile said that Grandpa Ji smelled very good and that he was sorry that his skills were so bad. After which he suggested that they should continue fighting. After all, the more angry he got, the more they would be happy. He activated his spirit and tried to destroy at least one of them. But he had little success, and the cultist told him that from the moment he crossed the threshold of the temple, he was under their spell from which he could not break away or escape. They even started talking through his spirit with his voice, which even made Ding Xiao start to go crazy at one point, and asked him not to pretend to be a spirit, but to come out and show himself to him. At some point, the boss came up to him along with Miao Shun and Liu Feinian and started to wake him up, thinking that he was only sleeping. But it looked like he was awake at that moment. Seeing that Ding Xiao had woken up, Miao Shun asked him if he was all right. Meanwhile, Ding Xiao thought that it looked like what happened to him was just an illusion and suddenly spat out something from his mouth. Miao Shun said that they saw a group of strange people rushing towards the place and followed them. And when they arrived, they saw him frozen in place like a lost soul, while the weirdos danced around him and shouted incantations. Miao Shun then asked Ding Xiao if he felt nothing at the moment. Ding Xiao replied that he did not feel anything at the moment and was curious about the reason why he was asking him. He asked because he saw the cultists entering the temple at that moment and drew Ding Xiao's attention to them, saying that they were the ones dancing around him. Ding Xiao looked at them and realized that they had cast an illusion on him. And Ding Xiao pounced on the cultists, asking why they had cast an illusion on him. But they told him that they were here to help Master Ji fulfill his wish and asked him if he needed the 8 earth spirit herbs. Clutching one of them with his hand, Ding Xiao asked him how they knew about it. To which the latter replied to him that Master Grandpa Ji had told them about it. Angry, Ding Xiao asked him more. Didn't he call him Master Grandpa Ji, and how many such grandfathers there were in this place? To which the latter replied that he would find out the answers by going to the abandoned Zhao family's house in the east. Then he calmed down a bit and asked them if the herb he needed was located where they were sending him. They replied that they did not know where it was. Angry again, he asked why then they were telling him that he had to go there if he wanted to get the herb. They replied that that was what their grandfather had told them and that they didn't know anything else. The boss tried to calm him down by telling him that they were a bunch of lunatics and that he should not give in to their words. He also added that they would find a way to find the herb on their own. With these words, he managed to calm Ding Xiao down. But Ding Xiao himself wondered afterwards why he had abruptly become so irritable because of these cultivators, and remembered that in the illusion they had said that he had been exposed, but in what exactly, he didn't understand. Next went Ding Xiao with 3 other disciples to the abandoned house of the Jiang family. The girl said that there was no sign of any living people around. Ding Xiao said that this place could be a trap set by them and that it was too late to leave. Liu Feinian said that what happened was their own fault and now they just want to redeem themselves and cure Hao Yi. The boss said that they will prove it with their actions and asked them to trust them. Ding Xiao agreed with them, but at the same moment, he saw the statue's mouth split open and a chicken came out from there, which spoke of the first master. He was greatly startled when he saw this. The other disciples calmed him down and asked him what was going on. He replied by asking them if they had seen the head of the statue turn into a chicken's head. They were surprised to hear about the chicken head for the first time. Also, one of them asked Ding Xiao where the chicken heads could be from and offered him a break. Meanwhile, Ding Xiao thought that it was just another illusion, but he didn't understand what these cultists were up to. Ding Xiao replied that everything was fine and that it was okay to continue investigating. He also added that this was a very strange place, and so we should be very careful here. Miao Shun looked at the statue and wondered who would put it in a normal person's house because it looked as strange, unusual, and unattractive as possible. Suddenly, something began to emerge from this stage. Ding Xiao shouted to all of them that they had to get out of here no matter what, and they all ran together to the exit as fast as possible because everyone had already realized that Ding Xiao was not crazy and something was obviously going on here. Seeing and realizing that they couldn't get out, they started defending themselves with every possible option they had. Ding Xiao activated the Thunder Talisman, expelling evil, and got rid of all the attackers for a while. The boss wondered what was even going on here. After all, if there were ordinary people here, that too could very easily swallow them up. Miao Shun asked him if he remembered the disappearance of people. What could be the cause of it? At some point, Ding Xiao noticed that his amulet started to react, and after all, it should only react to the grass 8 earth spirits. Meanwhile, the destroyed demon began to spew out many other of its brethren. All the demons came to life again, multiplied and continued to attack. Miao Shun told Ding Xiao that they would cover him while he searched for grass and told him not to worry and leave the battle to them. And then they really started the battle saying that they were in harmony with each other and offered to merge with them the spirit possessed. They also put forth all their strength that they could to win. While they were fighting, Ding Xiao, after activating the speed talisman, quickly moved somewhere, presumably into the belly of the evil demon, but he didn't see anything there. He was looking for grass, but he couldn't see not only grass, but also nothing around him. But at some point, he looked closely and saw a single plant and thought it was the 8 earth spirit grass and thought that Hao Yi would finally be saved, so he went to get the plant. Touching the plant, he suddenly moved to the gate of his house where his sister Liner was and didn't realize what had even happened or why he was in this particular place at this moment. Turning to his sister and asking what she was doing in this place, she turned to him and asked if he would have dinner with her. But he saw that it was no longer his sister, and that she looked more like a demon, and he ended up getting scared. The boss asked him if he was okay, but he didn't understand anything because it was not like a dream. The boss asked if he was all right, but he didn't understand anything at all because it didn't look like a dream. Ding Xiao then asked them what happened and if he was hallucinating again. In response, they told him not to be nervous and told him that he jumped into the mouth and then jumped out and chopped the bronze statue into 2 pieces with his sword. They also said that right after that, they saw a wave of demonic energy rush into him, after which he lost consciousness. Ding Xiao mentally wondered why he couldn't remember anything after that. After a short thought, he told them that he wanted to go with them to those cultists, for they had a score to settle, and to do that, they now needed to be found. But Liu Feinian said that there was no need to look for anyone. After all, they had all those 3 cultists, and she was leaving it up to him to decide exactly how and when to interrogate them after everything that had happened. He asked them if they liked to play with him and tease him. But after taking off his mask, one of them asked him who he was and said that he didn't know him. Ding Xiao didn't believe it and asked them not to play dumb once again. But one of the cultists kept saying that he really didn't know him. Next, Ding Xiao swung his sword and said that in that case, he would make them all remember and tell absolutely everything. Suddenly, they told him to burn his life away. Ding Xiao told them that if they didn't want to die, then let them explain everything. They retorted by addressing him as a master and said that they would explain everything to him if he didn't kill them. And one of them began to tell the story that the evil spirit has 8 hearts and 8 mouths. 4 of the hearts are on the outside of the stomach and the other 4 on the inside. And that the one he had solved last night was only one of them, without which he could exist. Another complimented him that until the 4 hearts outside were destroyed, he wouldn't be able to escape, and that only then would he be able to open his belly and take out the spiritual herb. Ding Xiao further asked them if this was true. They replied that of course it was true and that it was the same demon that was eating people in Dunhuang. And most of all, according to them, he really wants to eat Master Genji. In response to which Ding Xiao asked if that meant he wanted to eat him. They replied that the demon wanted to eat him for the simple reason that he was very different from all the other people in Dunhuang, and added that perhaps only he himself knew how he was different from other people. Mentally, Ding Xiao realized that it was probably about his spirit. After these thoughts and conversations, he asked them to take him to the 3 remaining hearts to unravel them as well and destroy them. To which they agreed and said that they would have no problem doing so. Before leaving, one of them told him that the bigger the demon is, the harder it is to deal with, and if they don't stop it, it will devour all of Dunhuang. And further added that if he killed the demon, he would save the people of Dunhuang. Miao Xun saw that a cultist had picked up a dead man and was carrying him and asked the cultist if the dead man's soul needed to be laid to rest. He replied that the Genji members were stillborn and would not harm anyone as they were useless. After that, the cultivators went and called all the disciples along with Ding Xiao after them. Ding Xiao said that they could go and that there was no need to worry about anything as they were not as dangerous as they had mistakenly thought of them earlier. Near the gate on the way out, Yang Shu met them and told Ding Xiao that he was finally awake. Ding Xiao responded by thanking him for his concern and said that he was now perfectly fine. And to Yang's question about the connection with the cultists, he said that it was a long story. Ding Xiao told him briefly that the cultists said that they had a way to recognize the demon responsible for the disappearance of people in Dunhuang, and the spiritual herb according to them was in the demon's stomach. When Yang Shu asked if it was nonsense that the spirit herb was in the demon's stomach, the cultists replied that he shouldn't be angry because everything they said was the absolute truth. They further said that the 8 earth spirit grass only grows inside the demon. After hearing about the 8 hearts and 8 mouths and not believing it, Yang Shu asked Ding Xiao if he really believed it. Ding Xiao replied to him that they had already solved the 1 heart problem, so everything they say must be true in his opinion. Yang Shu went on to say that it was fine, but Gong Jing hadn't shown up in a few days, and something serious might happen at the Li residence, so he would have to keep an eye on it, and that if there was a problem, they could come at any time. After a while, Ding Xiao reached the last of the hearts. But what he saw as a result seemed extremely strange to one of the cultivators. He didn't explain the reason, but just said that everything was very strange in his opinion. When they cut down the last statue, they suddenly discovered that there was only 1/2 of the heart in the statue, and no one understood why it was like that and where the other half of the heart was. At some point, Ding Xiao had somehow learned that something had happened in the Li house, and that Yang and the others were still inside that house, and that one should hurry to enter the house sooner rather than later and save all those defenders who were there. Upon entering the mansion, they found a formation inside called Evil Zen Prison, and that the entire mansion is covered with it. This formation contains evil energy, and Dunhuang is now filled with it. Miao Xun asked what they should do now. Once Ding Xiao started absorbing energy, Miao Xun asked if he could really do this. The boss replied that Ding Xiao's spiritual phase was different from theirs and that this ability had saved them from the demon master during the trial. Lu Feinian said that if the Soul Society found out about it, they would be in trouble. She also added that he trusted them a lot and so this secret should remain a secret to him because it was time to end it. At one point, a demon appeared, promising to eat everyone. But the defenders and students of the corpse department, with the help of various talismans, chained it up and began to destroy it. Yang Shu said that he had broken 10,000 laws and that the bloody bell was on its way, after which he started ringing the bell. Ding Xiao told Yang Shu that he and the other disciples had recently destroyed a few demon hearts, but the last half was hidden in the Li mansion. Yang Shu didn't want to believe this in any way, under any circumstances. Yang Shu told him that it was impossible because he had cast a spell on it and who had not touched the coffin for the past few days. He also asked if it was possible that he had brought the coffin with a heart inside. Ding Xiao told him to remember and think about what happened before the spell was cast on the coffin. On that day, an unforeseen situation happened and he himself became that demon at some point, and Ding Xiao began to fight with the alleged Yang Shu. And Ding Xiao asked him who he was and why he had raised this demon that harmed people. He replied that he had not summoned the demon and that he was the one who had swallowed the people in Dunhuang, that is, the demon himself. He further asked Ding Xiao if he would give his life for the destroyed Lingxi city. He further complimented that with his friends, he wouldn't be able to deal with him and he would just have to hold him back and wait until the time came. But not much time passed until Miao killed the demon with the stake that Commander Lin had lent Ding Xiao and told Ding Xiao that it was the real treasure that had saved them. The demon didn't expect such a turn of events. After the victory, he returned the stake he had taken from Ding Xiao. And Ding Xiao himself thought about the fact that this demon was very strange. It had been hiding under the noses of the people in the corpse department for so long that someone was quite like helping it still, and it needed to be found out. Ding Xiao did not take the stake back and said that if he was detained, he would use it. And then the unexplainable began to happen. Ding Xiao asked if it was a hallucination and was told that it was not. And to Ding Xiao's next question as to what was going on then, the reply came from space with a laugh that all of Dunhuang was made up of him and that if he had a heart, he could devour everything at dawn and entertain them already in his stomach. When asked by the boss if he was the culprit of all the evil in Dunhuang, he demon replied that they had ruined his plans and that was why they themselves would become his hearts. After his words, he tried to attack them and actually make them his hearts, as he said, and they continued to battle for their already lives. In the battle, the boss asked how dare this demon behave so arrogantly in front of the corpse department, and Ding Xiao complimented him that he had been doing it for years, but today was finally the day of reckoning. The demon kept saying that he thought they were ignorant children and kept asking to become his hearts. But Lu Feinian activated 5 symbols at that moment, namely green, yellow, red, white, and black, and told Ding Xiao to kill him. But the demon was stronger than they all thought, and even the multicolored chains of the 5 characters couldn't hold him back for long. He broke free of everything and kept saying that he would eat everyone, tear them to pieces, and make their hearts. Entering the spiritual palace, he did not find his spirit and began to ask whether it was another illusion or whether he had correctly entered the spiritual palace. But for some reason, his spirit was not there, and why there was so much fog, where his spirit had disappeared to. The demon answered him in the spiritual palace that he had eaten his spirit and that he was no more. When asked who he was, his former spirit in a new form similar to him answered him that he was his spirit, and immersed the entire demon completely into Ding Xiao's body. The corpse disciples observing all this began to talk amongst themselves. One asked if the spirit phase was like this and that he was so ferocious. Another noticed the 8 earth spirit grass and went towards it, while Ding Xiao attacked him. The demon devoured Ding Xiao completely and through his body went to devour the one who went to get the herb. To him, the others started shouting, had he gone crazy? What was he doing? They obviously noticed something was wrong with him. He started hurting and hitting everyone. One of the people he attacked ripped off Ding Xiao's pendant and said it was an illusion and asked him to wake up. Ding Xiao immediately changed and stopped saying that he wanted to eat any of them. He didn't want to do that anymore. He sort of woke up from a dream or illusion, but didn't fully understand what had happened to him. The boss said that it was a blessing in this misfortune that Brother Yang still turned out to be alive, but the two were still not as lucky as Yang and unfortunately died immediately at the scene of the battle with the most powerful demon. Ding Xiao further thought about the fact that if he had realized the Li family's plot much earlier, they could have avoided and prevented such a tragedy and the killing of 2 rather strong corpse division disciples. Ding Xiao then apologized to the boss for almost killing him and also everyone else after him. He replied by telling him that he knew he didn't mean it and told him to use his power more carefully in the future. He thanked everyone for stopping him, and at one point he saw Master Li, who said it was all his fault. He went on to say that a few months ago, when he was suffering from an illness, he applied for medical care and Genji came to tell him that he could live indefinitely if he became a demon, and he became one. He also said that when he became a demon, aging and disease disappeared as he had hoped, but new problems appeared. He began to crave chickens, dogs, pigs, and people as food. His mind became dominated by desires. The cultist then told him that turning his closest relatives into a heart could suppress desires. So he sent someone to kill Dyer and turned him into a heart to become one with him, which he did. Later on, he said Dean sent Dyer back to Dunhuang, and they know what happened next. The boss asked if the cultists were to blame for everything again. Ding Xiao asked if he knew what they needed, to which Li said that they need something that has to do with Ding Xiao. Meanwhile, the cultists were sitting around talking about how they were really unlucky and that they almost managed to get their first master, but someone is significantly messing up all their plans, and they don't understand at all who exactly is doing it. One of them told everyone not to worry, because tasting the master's meat is not as easy as it seems, and if it didn't work out this time, they would wait for another time and that they would always have a chance that one day they wouldn't miss. Immediately, Ding Xiao walked in and asked them whose meat they wanted. One of them got excited immediately when he saw him and said that he was that first master. The other said, "Let's do it." And they began to fight. After Ding Xiao defeated one, the other said that they had lost Xian Hui, to which the third said that he should not panic because they still had real skills, and the fourth said that wherever they went in the sky, there was a god in the sky. They also said that the paths of all generations are intertwined. To which Ding Xiao replied to all of them that the worm in the mud ball was dead and asked them all not to deceive themselves. To which they only laughed and threatened him significantly. They addressed him as Master Ji and said that now he knew what they were capable of and that if they killed the Taoist master, they would all eat meat and they would all become immortal and unkillable forever as a result. Ding Xiao thought that according to Master Li, they were trying to conceive their own spirit phase and listen to roadside charlatans who advised them to eat spirit flesh. But an ordinary person would go crazy after coming into contact with them. Then he turned to them and said that despite being pathetic, they had encouraged the Li family to harm countless people and they should pay for it all with their lives. And he killed them all after his words. A few days later, Ding Xiao with Bai Shi and the others came to the medical center to see Hou Yi. Bai Shi told the doctor to apply the ointment of Demon's Heart and the 8 Earth Spirits herb on Hou Yi's body, after which he would be successfully cured in less than 3 days. The boss went on to say that since it worked, it means they didn't try in vain. Ding Xiao confirmed his words, then turned to Bai Shi and told her that this time he had survived because of her and said that he had accidentally broken her jade pendant. Bai Shi thought at that moment after hearing Ding Xiao's words and thought that if the jade pendant cracked, it looked like it had encountered a very strong demonic energy and it was unknown if it was directly related to Ding Xiao. After briefly thinking about it, Bai Shi told Ding Xiao that this jade pendant was called Full Moon and it would be recovered at moonrise, so she asked her to keep it because he might still need it many times. Ding Xiao thanked her for that and thought with hope that she wouldn't suspect anything. After all, he realized that the pendant had cracked for a reason and that she might have thought about it after his words and suspected something that could turn badly against him. Then the 3 people who were with him also said that they had also helped. Ding Xiao replied that it was thanks to them that he had also survived this time and separately thanked each of them for saving him. Ding Xiao then said that Liner might have been worried after being away for so long and he should come back and report that everything was fine. He then said that he had to go home, after which he also asked them to take care of Hou Yi. Bai Shi really wanted to go with him and asked his permission to do so. Ding Xiao agreed to let her go along with him because he didn't mind walking along with her together and he was somewhat pleased. When they reached Ding Xiao's courtyard and entered the courtyard, they found that something very serious had happened there. Ding Xiao was very scared that something had happened to his sister Liner. Then he quickly ran into the house, thinking that his sister might not be alive anymore. When he entered the house, he found his sister Liner, who told him that she was very scared. Ding Xiao told her not to be afraid because he was already home. His sister told him that she didn't know what happened because when she woke up, everything was already like this. Ding Xiao listened to his sister think about the fact that although the room was a mess, but there were no traces, and it was quite similar to the fact that it was not a thief, and was looking for something intentionally, and quite similar to the fact that it was what was on the back of her head. Bai Shi, who came in after Ding Xiao, said that she had discovered the demon's footprints. Ding Xiao replied to her that bone jackals often attack people here, and he had set up a security talisman beforehand, but he didn't expect them to break into the house anyway. He further added that luckily Liner was fine. But Bai Shi suspected something and wondered if it was just a simple demon attack. She also thought that since he didn't want to talk about it in detail, it was better not to ask. Next, Bai Shi gave Ding Xiao some spiritual water and said that it was good for the soul and that if Liner was scared, let her drink it, after which she should feel much better. After which, Ding Xiao thanked her and said that he owed her again. Bai Shi said that Liner needed to recover and so she wouldn't bother him anymore today and left. Ding Xiao thought at that moment that Bai Shi trusted him so much, but he had already lied to her several times, not trusting her in turn. Next, he thought that perhaps he should find an opportunity to confess it to her. Next, he thought that the incident in Dunhuang had allowed him to enter the secret treasure pavilion, which was where he came to later, but Liner's tea rubber didn't help. He thought while in the secret treasure pavilion that he should take a few more tasks in the corpse department to increase his defense rank and obtain a higher level medicine. But his thoughts were suddenly interrupted by Hou Yi entering. Ding Xiao immediately saw him and asked why he wasn't at the medical center and if he was all right. To which Hou Yi responded by telling him that he wanted to go with him even if it was just to carry the coffin. He also said that he was more energetic than before. Ding Xiao replied to him that the task of delivering corpses was no joke, and he had almost lost his life in the past trial, and if something happened to him again, he would never forgive himself and would always blame himself for it. But Hao Yi is quite persistent and said that he doesn't want to stay in one place for the rest of his life and doesn't want to be a burden to everyone all the time. And Ding Xiao suddenly agreed to go on one of the missions with him for mutual supervision. One of the following days, they went to Jiao's mansion. On the way, Ding Xiao told Hao Yi that the deceased was named Zhou Gu. He had not yet been sent to the corpse hall, and the coffin was still at home. His spirit is a 4 Wu him harmless rabbit. Before Hao Yi could say that he wasn't so timid, they had already reached their destination, and the owner of the mansion came out to them. He asked the guard if it was the guard from the corpse department and if he had come to pick up the coffin, to which they replied in the affirmative. After their positive answers, the owner invited them inside and told them that they had finally arrived, because he had been waiting for them for quite some time. He also said that they had already glued all the mascots on according to the instructions, so there would be no problems. When asked what happened to the deceased, the owner said it was hard to say, and said that Zhou Gu was his family's son-in-law, and because of his daughter's insecurity, he took his own life in shame. To which Ding Xiao said that he understood and accepted the situation. Looking at the coffin, he thought it was a suicide and hoped that the coffin would not cause them any trouble. Hao Yi took the coffin on his back and said that he was ready to leave. Ding Xiao said goodbye to the owner and off they went. But no sooner had they left the mansion than the owner also told them that he would like to ask if they had one for a peace talisman to help his daughter sleep, and that he was willing to pay any price for it, for which they agreed to sell it to him. Ding Xiao told him twice the inflated price and the owner paid him, after which he gave him the talisman and they left. After leaving the mansion, Hou Yi asked Ding Xiao if it was too rude of him to double the price for the peace talisman. Ding Xiao replied that Master Jiao was very wealthy and he was willing to pay any price without a second thought. Besides, he must have done something wrong to ask him so urgently, and also assumed that the cause of death of the corpse was different. Hao Yi told him that he was worrying too much and that it was only one 4-eared rabbit, but there were 2 of them. And if anything were to happen, they would definitely be able to handle it, even though they would be in a 2-against-1 battle. At some point, Hou Yi fell down along with the coffin. Ding Xiao asked him if he was all right. Hou Yi told him that the coffin had suddenly become so heavy that he could no longer carry it any further, so he fell to the ground with it. When Hou Yi asked what was wrong with the coffin, Ding Xiao told him that there was no need to be afraid, as only a few talismans were out of order, but the overwhelming talisman remained in place. However, there was indeed something wrong with the coffin and he noticed it. A talisman named Light Feather can reduce the weight of the coffin and the burden on the bearer. Hou Yi saw Ding Xiao's attempt to open the coffin and asked him if it was really bad. After all, if you open the coffin, all the talismans will stop working. Ding Xiao replied that he wanted to check just in case, and they had others. When Ding Xiao saw the broken body, he realized that the matter was bad and said that he would carry the coffin himself and suggested that he return to Jiao village because something might have happened there, especially since the owner of the mansion had asked for a peace talisman. Meanwhile, Commander Zhang Tianlin asked one of his disciples how things were going. The servant replied that he need not worry, as he would do absolutely everything to ensure that Ding Xiao was taken care of. Zhang further thought that Jiao village was under the jurisdiction of the corpse department of southern Lingzhen, and if something went wrong, he would be interested to see if the corpse department's ministers could appeal to the spiritual department. On the way, Hou Yi asked Ding Xiao why he was so nervous, to which Ding Xiao replied that they don't carry bodies, but carry their souls, and unlike ordinary corpses, chopped corpses are more restless, because every piece of the body can be filled with a soul. He further added that the chopped-up body in the coffin was suppressed by the talisman, but if Jiao village had his remains, they were in big trouble. Suddenly, a monster appeared in front of them. Seeing it, he told Hao Yi to watch the coffin and take care of himself. Ding Xiao used the soul amulet to say that the body would return to the underworld and the soul would return to heaven and earth. Meanwhile, the monster released the recently captured man, who when asked what had happened, said something. The man said he was Zhou Gu. Young Zhao fell in love and Zhou Gu went to look for her lover, but young Zhao and her lover cut him to pieces, and after that he attacks all the living people he sees. He also asked for help. Ding Xiao thought that to protect his daughter, Mr. Zhao hid the true cause of death, and they bought a peace talisman to escape punishment, but in the end they couldn't save their lives. The soul said that it wasn't enough and he wanted more. Ding Xiao replied to the soul that he knew that she had many grudges in her life, but now that her revenge was accomplished, there was nothing left in this world for her. After which, he asked her why she was still very eager to hurt people, but the soul didn't answer him except for a word. To which Ding Xiao said that since she was so possessed, he would help her get rid of the evil in her body. After which, he activated the liberating talisman. The soul meanwhile invited him to join him. The soul also said that he wouldn't be able to get away from it. The released talisman didn't do much, so Ding Xiao launched a Qilin pearl at this soul, which worked with such power that no one expected such a thing, not even Ding Xiao himself. Then after all this, Ding Xiao thought that fortunately, after becoming a soul master, the phase energy in his body had become greater, and even the Qilin pearl had become 50% higher than before. Previously, it had triggered much weaker for him. But all of a sudden, this soul suddenly turned into a huge monster that possessed a bone-crushing fury belonging to the intermediate master level. And then Ding Xiao thought that not only did it not die, but its strength had increased many times over. He further thought that even though his body had been transformed, it must be more fragile than the normal demons. He also guessed that someone was definitely behind this change and reinforcing it. The demon told Ding Xiao that his body would also belong to him, whereupon he used his strength and flung Ding Xiao with great speed away from himself. Hou Yi was worried about him, but he told him that he was fine and to keep an eye on the coffin. Next, Ding Xiao thought that after the recent events, he shouldn't use the heavenly phase until he knew what was happening to him. But he also realized that he didn't have much strength left, so he should still do it very quickly. Then he also activated the sword and shadow talisman, saying that sword blows fall like flowers and rain invisible. The demon responded by telling him that it was all in vain and would not help him defeat him completely. During the battle, he found Ling Shu's talisman and thought that the spiritual department had tried again. He then told Hou Yi to be careful because he realized that it had become more dangerous. Then he also activated the bronze armor talisman, but it was useless. Hou Yi decided to turn the demon's attention to himself and told him to let Ding Xiao go. After that, he told Ding Xiao to find a way to escape while he tried his best to apprehend this very angry and strong demon. Ding Xiao asked him if he was crazy, but he didn't answer. The demon switched to Hou Yi and told him that sooner or later he would become part of it. Hou Yi told him to go back to the underworld because that was where he belonged. Next, Ding Xiao thought of Hu and what a jerk he was, because he had tried for so long to bring him back to life. And he was doing this now, once again trying to die and not thinking about how much effort everyone had put into saving him. He suddenly found that for some reason he had been transported to the spiritual palace where his spirit was asking for his help. When he saw his spirit in chains, he asked him what had happened to him. Then he told him that he was coming and went to him as he had promised him before. But on the way to his spirit, he got caught in chains, and from space, some other voice told him that his spirit was out of control and if you got close enough, you could go crazy. Ding Xiao asked who was talking to him now. He suddenly saw the talisman floating separately in the air and heard in answer to his question that the will generated by the 81 golden talisman in his spiritual body was now speaking to him and that it was trying to keep him out of trouble. He asked the will whether it was preventing him from receiving his spiritual phase or whether someone else was doing it. The will replied that it was and that it was not hindering him in any way, but was only saving him because it had such a task. She further asked him if he didn't realize the fact that he was in a state of chaos and the hallucinations he had in Dunhuang were caused by his own phase. She also said that if he used it, she wouldn't be able to suppress it again. He told Will that he understood what she was saying and also knew that using the phase would have unpredictable consequences, but he couldn't let Hou Yi and the villagers die. They are more important to him than losing his mind and soul. Suddenly, Will replied that in that case, she could help him in this critical situation. He asked her in surprise if it was true. She said that it was true, but it would require some considerable effort from Ding Xiao. Meanwhile, Hou Yi was running away and telling the demon not to come any closer to him. He was also thinking that he was not strong at all and that he was such a loser who couldn't protect anyone. But suddenly, at some point, he noticed Ding Xiao waking up. Ding Xiao activated the golden talisman and thought that if this will wanted to take away such a very valuable ability from him, in that case, he would still see if her strength would be enough to stop such a rather strong demon. Then, after creating and applying the demon taming curse, he was still able to defeat the demon. Hou Yi asked him when he had mastered the technique of making talismans in the air, to which he replied that it was now. Ding Xiao also thought that even though he had used the power of the golden talisman, his spirit seemed to have meanwhile fallen into a very strong and deep sleep, from which it would most likely be very difficult to retrieve in his opinion. Further in the heavenly palace, Will told him of the many times he had lost control of the spirit and that he was constantly undermining its power and that he needed to learn and use a taming spell to seal the spirit before leaving the palace. Ding Xiao replied to the will that for the past 8 years, every time he started to develop his heavenly phase, she stopped him, and now that he is almost at his goal, she is here and raving to him, and that she is obsessed with preventing him. He also asked how much longer she would be possessed and told her to think about what had happened in Dunhuang. Will replied that if he suddenly decided to use his heavenly phase again, he would end up killing all those he had saved. He agreed with her that if he lost control, he didn't know how many people would be hurt. The will responded that he was thinking right and that this was the case and asked him to further give up this false and evil spirit and accept its power. Ding Xiao didn't quite understand what the will had told him and asked the will why it was so offensive to him, as the spirit had never deceived him. He also said that he didn't do anything bad to others and also asked how he could be evil. He also asked the will if she was talking about righteousness, then why in that case did she not appear when he was in danger so many times? And now that he could not rely on his spirit, she decided to take advantage of the situation. Ding Xiao also told the will that only he could decide and say whether his spirit was good or evil and that he would never give up his spirit, but he would take its power. So he took that will, took its power, and freed his spirit from all chains. In the ward after all this, Ding Xiao was told that this was a great achievement because thanks to him, the people of Xiao village had been saved, and Lin was very happy that he had already reached the 2nd rank as a result of this whole situation. Ding Xiao replied that this was what he had to do, but the spiritual department didn't hesitate to bring in innocent people to ambush him and ruin his task. He then asked if the spiritual department would eventually be punished for this offense. To which Commander Lin replied to him that the spirit department was so powerful that they wouldn't admit to it because of a mere talisman. He also said that they had even provoked the city department to put the corpse department to the test. Ding Xiao told Commander Lin that it was most likely another conspiracy by the spiritual department. Commander Lin replied that he agreed with him, but they were weak, so they could only take the bull by the horns. Commander Lin also said that his department always rewards service and told Ding Xiao that he would be a level 7 protector from now on and told him to keep it up, and he hoped he would live up to his department's expectations on the test. Ding Xiao thanked Lin and asked if it was right to be promoted by 2 ranks for 1 task. Lin replied that the 1 herb in the treasury has the effect of dispelling evil spirits and nourishing the body, and level 7 guards are entitled to 1 herb. He also said that this herb would be useful to him. After that, Ding Xiao wondered if Commander Lin knew about Linner's condition and wondered if something had happened to her. After all, just like that, he obviously wouldn't promote him by 2 ranks immediately and give him the herb he needed. After all this, Ding Xiao came home, and when he saw Linner, he asked her if she was feeling well. She told him that she was fine and also said that Bayi had come to visit her and brought her some cakes, which she shared with him. And then, Ding Xiao thought that there were too many things she had brought, namely the Mufan herb, Lin Qing fruit, and plenty of other herbs that ward off evil spirits, and that it looked like Bayi had noticed something strange about Linner, but decided not to admit it. After pondering, Ding Xiao told his sister that he would try to get a new medicine later. After all, he had already been promoted to the 7th rank and now had access to better and more potent medicines. In response to which she asked what it was for. The face on the back of Linner's head also said that it didn't want the medicine. He didn't quite understand what had happened or who was talking to him and decided to check the back of Linner's head. Linner herself, meanwhile, asked him what he was doing. He looked at the back of his head and thought he had imagined it. Then he replied to his sister that everything was fine. After that, he invited her into the house and told her that he would prepare everything. To which Linner agreed, and they went together to the tomb. Back at the house, he thought that the hold was no longer as strong and that it looked like the golden talisman had lost its power. But he had learned how to create a talisman in the air, and it was no problem at all for him to subdue a 4th rank demon. Linner said that something was wrong and that someone knocked on the gate. When Ding Xiao came and opened it, he saw Hao Yi in front of him and asked what was wrong. It was late, to which he replied that someone from the spiritual department had come and that he should go. In the middle of the night in the corpse department, someone really wanted to come out of the coffin. No one understood what was going on. After all, senior brother Lin had obviously not made a single mistake, and most likely the spiritual department had done something to the corpse and it now wanted to come out. There were many people and disciples from both the spiritual and corporeal departments. When Ding Xiao arrived at the place and saw all this, he wondered if this was the trial that Head Lin was talking about, or if there was another reason for all this commotion. Next, Ding Xiao approached the disciples from the group with whom he had gone through the past trials and who had even rescued him and asked them what was going on at the moment. They paid attention to him and began to tell him in detail. They told him that in recent years there had been an increase in the number of undead, and the Ministry of Souls blamed their corpse department for their low efficiency, and that was why they had brought in some coffins to test them out and something had gone wrong. Zhang observed that the corpse department was not doing well and said laughingly that he had said that the corpse department was made up and could not do anything, and that it looked like the body had already been devoured by an evil spirit. Zhang also further complimented that the corpse department adhered to the concept of pacifying souls and suppressing evil demons, but they couldn't handle it now and asked why not immediately lure evil spirits to then kill them. He also said that he thought the cadaver department had no more reason to exist, and that sooner or later they would be shut down by the city department, and he would take very good care of that. At one point, the demon managed to break out of the coffin and even tried to attack someone. The disciples of the spiritual department decided to intervene and deal with the demon, but they were beaten to the punch and had not expected it. Commander Lin saw the spell created in the air and thought, "Is this really Ding Xiao?" Zhang Tianxing thought at that moment that no soul disciple had yet to have an epiphany and that these were not the abilities of an ordinary disciple. He was astonished by what he saw. Everyone saw how fast this talisman could create spiritual chains. Zhang said that he had never seen a talisman of such a level, and after that, he also asked who had decided to do this and who dared to interfere in their affairs. Ding Xiao replied that his job was to restore the soul and that there was no need to tell him what to do and when to do it. Zhang and his other disciples from the spiritual department were simply furious and at the same time surprised. One of the corpse department attendants asked how he did it, since he had only become a mere guard not so long ago, but he was already so powerful. Another also asked when he had learned such a powerful talisman technique. Zhang Tianxing then turned to Ding Xiao, who was walking towards him, and said that he didn't know that he could create talismans in the air and that he was impressed with his abilities. All everyone else did was talk about how someone in the corpse department had mastered the art of creating talismans in the air and that he was awesome, not quite sure how he did it or when he had time to learn it. Meanwhile, Zhang Tianxing mentally wondered how someone from the corpse department was able to do this. He also thought that he definitely had talent, but if this was all he was capable of, then the corpse department was doomed in that case. After all this, Ding Xiao asked Commander Lin for permission to give him the next test. Commander Lin replied to him that since he had gained strength during the few days of absence, he had agreed to entrust him with the next test. Meanwhile, Zhang Tianxing said, since Ding Xiao had mastered the technique of creating talismans and could easily appease spirits, why didn't he take care of the remaining 2 coffins to demonstrate the power of the corpse department? Commander Lin turned to Zhang Tianxing after this question and said that changing the rules at the last moment was unfair. Zhang Tianxing asked Commander Lin in response if he had any reason to be worried. The disciples from the spiritual department complimented him by saying that it would be difficult for one person to handle 2 coffins, but Ding Xiao had already mastered a strong technique and could do it, and further asked if that was the case and if it was easy to become a protector now. Zhang Tianxing thought at that moment that he wanted to see if Ding Xiao could cope with what he had prepared for the corpse department, and what he had prepared was very difficult to cope with. Ding Xiao thought in turn that if the corpse department was closed, he would never be able to enter the secret treasure pavilion to cure Liner again, and he would definitely have to prevail to prevent that from happening at this time. Ding Xiao further said that he had a condition, the essence of which was that if he succeeded in appeasing the souls, the spiritual department should not set foot in the corpse department's territory for 3 months under any circumstances. Zhang Tianxing agreed to the condition, but other corpse department servants intervened, who didn't understand how souls could be pacified without special masters and therefore wanted to help him. After all, they could participate together. To which Ding Xiao told them that this trap of the spiritual department might be too dangerous for them. To which they replied to him that even if it was a trap, they couldn't let him jump into it alone, continuing to ask for directions. Ding Xiao thought that it was good to have loyal helpers, after which he asked Zhang Tianxing if he would agree to have those ministers who were very much asking to help him participate with him. To which Zhang agreed. Commander Lin looked at Ding Xiao and thought that at this moment, the future existence of the corpse department depended solely on him and that he must definitely succeed in passing this test. While the other ministers began to appease the souls, saying to let the bodies return to the earth and their souls to the heaven and underworld, Ding Xiao meanwhile prepared to suppress the demons, and Hou Yi wondered why he had prepared for this. Ding Xiao in turn replied to him that the souls of the two corpses were surely altered and that without the preparation of the trap, Zhang would not have come here. He then gave Hao Yi a speed talisman and told him to hide in case of something very dangerous. One of the ministers said that the two died in offense and that it was not easy to find such corpses. Liu Feinian complimented him that the spiritual department had put a lot of effort into destroying them. And at the same moment, all the talismans suddenly burnt down. After burning the talismans, a level 3 demonic steel hedgehog emerged from one of the coffins and said that he was alive again. When they saw him, the corpse department staff were frightened as they thought he was a very strong and dangerous demon. Ding Xiao didn't get scared when he saw the demon. After all, he had been waiting for it. He ordered the three to hold the second coffin while he dealt with this demon. And he began to use his technique of creating talismans in the air again, surprising everyone present. Everyone started talking about the fact that he had used this technique again, and that this time he had made 3 bronze armor talismans at once at the same time. Something that not even a soul general, let alone ordinary soul masters, were capable of. Looking at the steel hedgehog, Ding Xiao thought that this demon was clearly not of the 3rd level, whereupon he tried to understand what kind of amplifier the spirit department had slipped him that was so difficult for the corpse department to deal with. After saying that the Lord had returned and the souls were supposed to disappear, Ding Xiao was sort of able to stop the demon. The attendant asked him if they had finally dealt with it, to which Ding Xiao replied that it wasn't that simple and vigilance was needed. The attendant said that he didn't think that the chain spiritual system wouldn't be able to hold this poor hedgehog. To which Ding Xiao told him to be careful, because the other corpse might also be a demon many times stronger. Another demon also broke out of the coffin and was very fast. The servant activated his spirit and started to fight it, but he was not very good at it because this demon was really much stronger. At some point, the spiky Jian Chong, who was a level 4 master rank demon, appeared, and he said that Qi prevented the flowers from flying apart. Liu Feinian activated the red, yellow, green, and black chains, pointing them at the demon. The attendant asked the possessed spirit to merge with him and rest in peace. Meanwhile, Ding Xiao tried to cut the flower from the level 4 demon Jian Chui. But instead of cutting the flower, he fell under the demon's full control and became a hubby who loved his demon wife. Meanwhile, the other fighting servants were already lying on the ground and seemed to be almost dead. The others who didn't participate said that it wasn't good that Ding Xiao was under the control of a demon. One disciple of the spiritual department said that it was time to disband them and send them to the farms. Another complimented him that he was talking about uselessness after all. Zhang Tianxing said that this was not good and turned to Master Lin and said that they would all be killed if they didn't do anything, and also asked him if he thought that the reputation of the corpse department was more important than the lives of the disciples. Meanwhile, Zhang thought after saying this that if the corpse department lost the trial, their department would be abolished and they would end up being the winners. He liked this prospect very much. But his thoughts were suddenly interrupted by Master Lin. He asked Zhang if it was too early to celebrate, because then the Ding Xiao he knew and whose talent he was proud of would not fall so easily. Zhang replied that he would have to wait for them to die. But to everyone's surprise, Ding Xiao was still able to get out of the influence and win. After the victory, he said that it was not so easy to let his guard down and use the golden talisman to not only hurt but also kill. Zhang Tianxing saw all this and started shouting that this couldn't be true and that he had never seen such a talisman before, which Ding Xiao had used in his battle with the colorful demon Jian Chong. Next, everyone else woke up and after defeating the demon were very happy that they had passed the test and their corpse department hadn't been shut down afterwards.